It's 6 o'clock. We will call the meeting to order. Let's start with public comments. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, directors are prohibited from acting on or discussing any new items brought before them at this time. Citizens' comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Comments about any of the agenda items are appreciated by the board of directors and may be taken into consideration at this time or during the agenda item. Please complete a public input form if you desire to address the board. All remarks and questions addressed to the board shall be addressed to the board as a whole and not to any individual member thereof. And Megan has suggested that for you to be heard, you stand close to the microphone here if you would like to. First comment is Tom, and his item is transparency.
I got a voice of clarity, so I think I'll be good. I wrote a story last week, a couple of weeks ago, that the federal government accidentally sent $287 million to the Taliban. I can't control what the federal government does with my money, but I can control what the community does. I believe anybody who works for the board, with the board, and adjacent to the board is all under the same scrutiny. And I believe that you should all be okay with having that qualification and job duty scrutinized. If you have a problem with that, I don't think you should be working for the homeowners, the residents, the taxpayers, because instead of Elm Ridge on your paycheck, just cross it out and put my name. Because I'm paying for everybody involved with Elm Ridge to do what they're doing. So on that, I would like to ensure that nobody's doing things they shouldn't be doing. Everybody's doing what they should be doing. Yeah. And that I don't care if there's a invoice that comes across the desk for $1 million roof or a $25 baggage check claim to Mexico. I don't want it coming out of my pocket if it's not legal. Bottom line, I just want more transparency on what goes through, and I don't want anything rubber stamped. You have a problem with what comes across your desk as an invoice for a building, whether it be fixtures, flooring, lights, and you got a problem because the board wants to look at that invoice and figure out what's going on, go find another line of work. The same for you. Pretty simple.
Thank you. Kane North.
I have a couple things. So first and foremost, I go back to the transparency. We, back in October 21st, 2021, it reported by the board that our building, the administrative building, was going to be $8.5 million. Now it's at, I don't know, 11 something. Why the change? What's the, what increased? It's never been addressed in public. We need to know why that has gone up. And I understand also it started off at 6 something million, but now we're at over $11 million. Why is the increase? Has not been made public, so we need to know that. The current board members, some of y'all also ran on transparency and submitted a lot of FOI requests. Have we learned anything from these requests? Those are the questions that should be answered by now. We've put those out in public. We've seen them on social media. Where is the information that we've got? The parties involved, have they, has anybody found out anything about the money that's been transferred back and forth to the third party? Where are we with that? Because we use the third party as a workaround. And if that was a workaround, did we violate tax laws? If so, what are we doing about that? Those are my 3 concerns right now.
Thank you, sir. Sean Burns.
Thank you. I want to thank the police in terms of the uppick of police presence on the roads of Artesia Boulevard and the walk to Rushing. Really appreciate that, and I think that it's making a bit of an impact as a driver who brings their kid on there with so many kids on the road. Clearly a safety hazard. Very kind of curious on as your officers are observing and seeing what's happening on the ground. One thing that still kind of strikes me as a concern is on the bridge on Artesia Boulevard, especially when bikes are going 2 ways or a pedestrian going both ways. if the officers are observing a potential risk there, and would there be some type of solution, even in the interim, to encourage bikers to dismount and walk their bikes over the bridge, or as a much safer behavior, a safer act, so to ensure that no one accidentally, when they're both going the same ways, may inadvertently fall into the street and get hit by a car. That's one thing. The other piece of suggestion is right on the corner of Harper and Chandler Drive, there might be a good opportunity for an officer to maybe stand there, because sometimes that intersection, sometimes with the light in the morning, can be blinding, as bikers tend to cross at that section to the other side of the road there. There was one time that I had a very close call in there as well. So maybe a presence there where it may encourage the bikers, the students to cross more safely in there and observe the traffic patterns. So piece of feedback here, but thank you for that particular presence there. I think it's making a big difference.
Thank you. Monica Barlow.
Okay. Hello. All right. Since the last election, there have been concerns raised, especially in the last couple of weeks. These concerns consist of the following: nepotism within the district and possible conflicts of interest, even if perceived; lack of employee oversight, which includes breach of employee contractual obligations and part-time employees billing the district 40 hours a week and receiving full-time benefits, as well as the questionable allocation of job responsibilities. So examples: payroll should be managed by an HR personnel or by the district accountant, and construction of the district/PD building should also include having our police chief's oversight and co-management to help tailor it for our officers and any department needs. Now, these items all seem to point to the lack of district board and employee policy. Such policies should state what board members can and cannot do, the responsibilities and powers of each board office, lay out district employee terms regarding job responsibilities, work hours, benefits, unpaid sick leaves, etc. And if there are such policies in place, then the board needs to review, update, and enforce them. There should also be an annual performance review for all district employees subject to the board's review. In addition to this, I believe our district does need a finance committee to ensure that our taxes are not being abused in any way. I also want to bring up reports of exclusion, targeting, and bullying. So I will mention, so like Felicia, our board member, recently stated publicly that she was being excluded from discussions because she's not part of the general consensus. As an airport resident, to hear that this is happening to our board representative is upsetting. The whole reason why we elect our board members is so we, the people, would be represented, not suppressed. Why is she not being included in our discussions? Why is there such a divide between board members who should be working together for the benefit of our residents? And what about the administration team? Are they even working with her and listening to her concerns that she has raised on residents' behalfs? And even if she didn't make that statement, this has actually been going around. I've had residents ask me in my community about this as well. I have also observed the tension in previous board meetings. And during the last election, I recall that she was endorsed and called fearless, strong, outspoken, and how it all comes from a place of caring. Is that now not the case because she's not part of the consensus? Is she not building her powers with grace? And is she asking uncomfortable questions? If so, why are these questions uncomfortable? This is really concerning, and I hope the board and district administration will put their egos aside and work on improving their working relationship, because overall, the people are watching. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more public comments? Do I have a motion to close public comments?
I think Tracy's got it.
Oh,
I'll wrap my card up.
sorry. Okay, yes.
I'll wrap my card up.
Sure.
My question is about the street light, the crossing street light in Prosper. Why are we still discussing whether we're going to use street lights in Prosper when it's already been said it's going to happen regardless of where we put our money? Let's watch our tax dollars and put it where it belongs versus another city or community.
Thank you. Any more public comments? Do I have a motion to close public comments?
A motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 2, conduct a public hearing regarding the district's tax rates, adopt an order levying taxes, and authorize execution of amendment to information form. The public hearing will be governed by the same rules applied to regular public comment.
Yes, Mr. President. So at the last meeting, if you recall, your financial advisor came to the board meeting and presented a financial analysis with regard to a proposed tax rate, which you then adopted at the previous meeting at 88 cents. That tax rate, you also scheduled the public hearing for this meeting. That proposed tax rate and hearing were published as required under statute. And so at this meeting, you will be, per law, holding a public hearing on the tax rate. So we will open the public hearing, solicit comments from the public on the tax rate, close the public hearing, and then the board will adopt the tax rate that it chooses to do so. When you set the tax rate, you can go up to what you published or below, but you can't go higher than the 88 cents that you published. And so we'll have the public hearing, then I think there's some discussions we need to have about the budget and stuff. So the first step is to open the public hearing to comments on the tax rate.
Very good. Are there any public comments on the tax rate?
Well, let me get a motion to open.
Oh, can I get a motion to open public comments?
I'll make the motion to open public comment for tax rate.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do we have to do speaker cards again?
No, we already have Kane, so
Oh, okay.
What was the previous rate?
it was 88.7 last year.
Okay.
It was 88.7 last year, and you're proposing 88,
88.
so going down.
7 tenths.
That's a max, by the way.
88.
That's all.
What's the year-over-year growth in total expenditure, and what's the year-on-year growth of the assessed values of all the properties?
That's a good question.
I don't know
I've got the Massey form open right now,
okay.
and the tax appraised value for 2024 is 2.718 million. Billion, sorry, yeah. So 2.7718 billion, which was flat over last year. There's a small increase, a minor increase, less than a couple percent increase in growth. It's less than 1%. But let me look at the exact dollar. 2.651 billion for 2023, it looks like. So we went from 2.653 billion to 2.718 billion. What it looks like.
And I do recall they said in the last meeting that appraisals were more or less flat. They weren't really moving too much. So
Yeah, the appraisals are flat. There is a increase from 402,000 last year, the average taxable value of a property, and this year is 436. So there was a jump in the taxable value. Now that has two reasons. One, your appraised value might not go as much, but in past years it's jumped up a lot. And there's a 10% cap that they have. So they're going to use that 10% cap every year. And so if it's limited one year, we'll pick that up in the next year on the taxable value. So there is a little bit of a jump in what they define as taxable value.
Immediate spending.
I can tell you what debt service is. I don't have the spending open, but the debt service for 2024 is 11 point. See, what is this? Outstanding debt service of 11.4 million. It looks like versus what was 10.8 million for 2023. It looks like for debt service.
5%.
yeah, and then expenses are going the same way, right? Nothing is going down. So
So overall, we should be estimating a 5% increase in our tax bills.
The limit is 8%. So that's what the, when they calculate the limit on the tax rate, they say that for the average taxpayer, their bill can only go up 8%, and that's what it's calculated on. So if your values go up, tax rate's got to come down to meet that 8%. And so while so that's the limit. Is we can't set a tax rate that would increase the average taxable rate or the average taxes that the average person pays more than 8%. So that's where the 8% in this case is the 88.
And I think the other thing to notate is at the time that this was published, and there still is some outstanding appraisal values to be finalized by Denton County CAD. So the numbers as far as the district's appraisal value could still change as far as what the taxable revenue is based on what those finalized Denton CAD numbers are once they finish up the outstanding any outstanding petitions and things of that nature within the district. So that can still have an impact on what the revenue is for the district and what the taxable appraised value of the district is once those are all completed.
Tax protests might make it go down a little more.
Some of those, not all of those, even though the tax protests were supposed to be, not all of those have been resolved yet.
You do need to make clarification though, it's Denton Central Appraisal District and not Denton County. They're two separate entities.
Thank you. No, appreciate that.
Denton County fully. Any other questions, public comments?
So I understand it looks like it's $130 million increase in appraisal value between 2023 and 2024 with a height that we can go to 88, low, you said to 80?
No, so,
Or 8?
8%, right? And so the 88, I think it's 88.3 is the actual, like if we went over 88.3 or something, we would have, the residents would give a petition for an election to get to that 8%. And so we don't set it above that 8%, one, because we want to make sure that we're conscious of the budget, but two, we don't want to incur the cost of an election if it's not necessary. And so the proposed rate that your financial advisor will look at your debt obligations for the coming year, based on the bonds you have sold. Okay, how much do we owe in debt next year? So we need, I think it's 41 cents of that tax rate this year coming up to make our debt payments. And then he'll work with your bookkeeper, general manager, the board on, okay, well, what does our budget look like? And what do we need to set our M&O, or maintenance and operation portion on to make sure we meet our budgeted expenses. And then there's the other, and that, so that this year is 41.5 cents. And then there's also a 5.5 cent tax. That's a contract tax. And what that does is that goes to pay your Upper Trinity bills. Upper Trinity provides your water and takes care of your sewer. And so under contract with them, we have to pay a certain amount every year for the water we get from them. So there's a contract tax that pays specifically for that. There's a maintenance and operation tax that pays for maintenance and operations. And then there's the debt service that pays for your debt. So it's a combination of three different taxes, but they work with kind of everybody to figure out what that needs to be to meet the needs of the district.
But do we need to go the full 8% or to cover percent?
We will talk about that. So, yes.
I think it's interesting to note also that the tax advisor said for every 1 penny decrease, it's $263,000. So
yeah, it's and that, so if we go down to 87, and we'll talk about that, then it's $270,000 we're losing as far as revenue goes, which is quite a bit if you're talking about expenses of the district. But we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second.
Are there any more public comments? Do I have a motion to close public comments?
I'll make a motion to close.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So you do have tax recommendation from Greg Masterson Greg Lentz from Masterson from last month. We also have Brandon, you asked for a evaluation on what a homestead exemption would impact the district, and there's a sheet in your packet with regard to that. And the minimum homestead exemption is $5,000. And what his evaluation said that if you adopt the $5,000 general homestead exemption, now you would lose $214,000 worth of revenue from granting that. So that obviously would have an impact on your budget as well. So there's that. And then also Rob and Lynn worked on two separate budgets. It's completely the same that you approved already, revenue or expenses, everything except we did one that has an 88-cent tax, which is being proposed. And that results in net revenue of $240,000. And then you have the 87-cent tax rate, which based on the calculations, results in a deficit of $24,000. And so we put these together, and I'll let Rob and Lynn talk about it a little bit more to kind of give you an idea about how different tax rates can impact the budget.
So the two tax, you should have both those in your folder, the 88 cents, and then the one says option, that option one's the 87 cents. Three variables that are changed in this. One, the certified values, because when we adopted a budget in July, because we had to before August 1st, we went on estimated values, but now we have the certified values. So that's one variable that has changed in this. The other variable is obviously the tax rate at 88 or 87 cents. And then we had expenses that we did not account for back in July that are either have happened now or going to happen this fiscal year. Three of them were the retirement TCDRS payments that we had to put back into the retirement system, that we're all aware about that. 81,000, whatever that amount was, that is calculated in these budgets now. And then we'll get into it later about the TCEQ violations that we had at our water inspection. So we're going to have to probably increase our subscription rate from Upper Trinity. So Jonathan and I have looked at that, and so we've estimated we put in an additional $100,000 for the water rate that we're going to have to buy more water. So that is inputted into these calculations. And then also $34,000, there was appeals for property tax appeals that got finalized, and Denton CAD just actually took that money back. So that is revenue that we don't have that they took already. So that's already gone into it. So those are the only three changes from a cost standpoint. Everything else remained exactly the same from either other than tax revenue, but any other additional revenue, all expenses are exactly the same as they were in those budgets before. And like Jonathan said, if you look at the end of at the bottom, when you're talking about what money do we have left over to projects and things like that, at the 88 cents, we have $243,600 left over. And then at 87 cents, which was the budget that we first adopted in July, now it is as a deficit. Questions?
So I'm a fan of lowering taxes. Wanted to lower it more, but Rob and I have had a lot of discussions about this. He's been managing this budget for a lot of years. And he's cautious, and he's going to pull me back from trying to push it down too far. From 87 to 88.7 to 88, 7/10 of a decrease, not much of a decrease. Your values are holding about even. So your bill should not go up. How much? Hold about even. There's slight variances. We are making two payments into reserves. It's in this budget that we passed. We're putting $1 million for the elevated storage tank. We're putting $1 million for roads. And I think about that. Did we need to collect that extra $1 million for the storage tank or for the roads? Should we return that as a tax and discuss it a little bit? And I would like to, I'd like to at least discuss it. Should we think about adjusting based on that, or good thing to keep money in the bank, keep those reserves and fully fund them? It's really the only opportunity I see in this budget. Everything else looks pretty dialed in.
What's the cost of that tank?
To put a new one,
It was, when it was put in, it was about $2.3 million. But that was in, what was that, maybe 2010? 11, something like that.
I think the thing that you gotta look at is, one, roads aren't cheap. And you've got a limit to the bonds that you have available.
We have no more road bonds.
Yes, we have, and that's what I was about to get to. We
no
have
more road
zero road bonds at this point in time. So that means if you need to repair roads, if you do not have a road bonds available, you have to go to the community if you don't have those reserves, and you have to ask for a tax increase or maybe to pay for new bonds. You're going to have to pass new bonds then for road bonds and ask them to say, hey, we need to repair these roads. We don't have a reserve for them. We need you to pass bonds so we can pay for those. Well, when you pass that level of bonds to repair those roads, you're probably going to be looking at a tax increase to pay for those bonds. And you got the same situation with the storage tank. So, you know, the one thing that I would say is I don't think you pull from reserves where you don't have bonds, because then you have to go and say, hey, we went ahead and we lowered the taxes because we thought it would be a good idea, and we killed off our reserves. But now we've got to ask you guys to pass a new bond to pass roads, to build roads and repair your roads. And we're going to have to increase your taxes on top of it.
it could happen.
And I don't think that's a smart way to handle a situation like this. I think you keep your reserves, you provide what tax break you can, even though it's limited this year. And then if inflation, all the other things being equal, continue down the trend, we continue to pay off debt like we're trying to, and we build up our reserves. We have provided a tax decrease, I know, for like the last 4 or 5 years. 5 years. So
Rate decrease.
yeah, correct. But you continue to build on that rate decrease every year and build your reserves so you don't ever have to come back for a rate increase, because nothing will upset your constituency more than if you come back and go, hey, we didn't plan for this. Now we got to ask you guys to pay, we got to increase your rate by 3 cents.
But meanwhile, the bigger picture is the rate goes down, my taxes go up, right? And I'm not happy about that.
Nobody is. And I agree. And then there's two sides to that story. I mean, one, you're right. I don't like paying higher taxes as far as out of my pocket. Nobody does. But the flip side of that is if we have to sell our homes versus what I bought my home at, the fact that your values are going up, that's equity in your pocket.
So I'm just painting the picture of, I would not sell this as a win tax decrease, because
I'm not selling it as a win tax
a
decrease. No, I'm not selling it as a win tax decrease.
It's pretty close. Or if we're going to possibly lower the rate to 7/10, values are almost static. So your personal one may go up or down, but
based on the 10%.
Yeah. As a district, values are about level. So the total tax bill won't go up much. It's close to a wash.
I don't want you to sit there and think that I'm trying to sell this as a win for anything. I'm trying to take the cautionary look of, it's a win if we're able to maintain reserves and we don't have to go back to the community and eat crow and say, hey, we didn't plan for all these road replacements we're going to have to do. Now we got to come back and ask you to pass a bond package so we can repair your roads and increase your tax rate.
What's in our road reserves?
1.9 million.
And this puts another 1 million.
And you can burn through that really quick.
I mean, look at, when we're talking about, and every one of our engineers has always been the ones that have advocated this, putting this back. Because when you get to 20-year-old roads, and Savannah has a bunch of those, and Artesia's not far behind, you're going to start having much more repairs. We did $1 million in road repairs this year. These were just small repairs. They weren't very large. But if you have a large scale road failure, you could be spending $5, $6, $7 million easily 1 year.
Say you have to replace Artesia Bridge as an example, the whole bridge. How many millions of dollars are you talking about now?
A few. Mm-hmm.
So not that we have to put it away every year, but we probably need to, we probably haven't got to the level of a reserve yet that we would feel comfortable and say, okay, we got enough kind of stashed away for a bad rainy day.
I did look at the homestead numbers and they were not supportive of, doing something on top of lowering the rate. I mean, we're not even going to really compress the rate too much. So I just don't see a homestead thing working out for us this year, but I do intend to revisit that. So.
Oh, I like the idea.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
So
Any other comment? Does anybody have a motion?
I would make a motion that we move forward with the recommendation from our financial advisors at a tax rate of 88 cents.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
So Jonathan, we will need to put this on the agenda next month to amend the budget.
Yeah, we'll finalize the numbers and then bring it back to you next month.
I'll say aye, but I had to think about that one.
Number 3, consent agenda.
Wait, hold on, I'm sorry. There's also, on that agenda item, we have to approve the new amendment to district information form and authorize us to record it. This is the document that is filed with real property records that gives information to the public about the district. Part of that is the tax rate. So since we're changing the tax rate, we have to amend that. And it also includes the notice to purchaser. Anytime somebody sells property in the district, they have to provide that notice. So this updates that notice to include the current tax rate. So there's a copy of it in your packet, but that's what you all have to sign tonight, but you're authorizing us to do that as well. Motion.
Mhm. Motion,
Yes, to amend the district information form.
do I have a motion to amend the district information form?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, sir.
On to the consent agenda. Directors, have you had a chance to review the consent agenda items? Are there any questions?
I had a lengthy conversation about equipment with Lynn and Aaron, so I had some questions there, but I'm good.
Good.
I just want to point that out.
Anything to share?
No, we're leasing and our lease payments are pretty steep, but they did do a cost study at the time and, that was deemed to be cheaper with the maintenance than outright buying the equipment. So I'm satisfied with that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions, concerns?
I had one question, on the invoices, for Arrowbrook Park, we're paying 21,000 to Mustang for water.
That was for the month that we did the maintenance on the fields and we had to water that when they put the new sod down.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a high month.
I saw that, I was like, oh.
It's not
so
normal.
Are we just watering now once a week then?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then the one sprinkler I did a ticket for, you guys.
Yeah, we gave that to our landscaper. They should be repaired.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4, review and acceptance of engineers report.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Nishan Richard. I'm filling in for Catherine and Andy. So letter A, the 2024 annual street maintenance. Savannah is 100% complete. They're 95% done in Artesia. And they're going to be moving to Arrowbrook starting next week. There's nothing for B, C, and D.
For E, there's only one invoice that needs to be paid, and that's for the street maintenance project, and that is pay app number 2, and that is $155,537.77.
We would ask for board approval for that.
Do I have a motion to make a payment to CI maintenance?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
There's nothing for F. G, there is an approval for an engineering task order for TRC engineering for Arrowbrook Park parking lot expansion. The design amount is $43,830.
Do I have a motion to approve the engineering invoice for Elbrook Park?
What is
So it's
it?
not an invoice, it's a task order.
It's a task order, yes, it's a task
So
order.
you're agreeing, they're going to provide the services, and so you're saying
Okay.
you're agree to.
And this is to pave it, or what are we doing here?
Expand the parking
This
lot.
is the engineering design part of it.
Yeah.
Salina Engineering has already completed their initial part of the project, but to complete it, they'll have to go through, because you're looking for where the water lines are, co-serve lines, all those things, and they'll engineer and stake it out and,
Still seems kind of high for a parking lot.
Yeah, I read some comments. I don't know that this is a widely accepted project, so I think I would want to kick this and maybe come back to it.
I guess the question, couple of questions. One, how long is the quote good for? Do we know? Is it 30 or 60 days?
I'm not sure. I can have Catherine follow up and give y'all all the information and the breakdown of the task order. And that was something y'all would like.
Yeah, that would be good. And the other thing is when I was looking at the quote that they had provided, there was some items in it that I was surprised weren't going to be a part of, and I understand some of it, but I guess, I had some questions for why certain things were being excluded in the scope of the design aspect, like drainage, some drainage aspects and things of that. Those are pretty important to parking lot things, but they were also noted as being exclusions. So I was wondering what parts of drainage and items were excluded from that design concept that already incorporated in Salina aspect from an engineering standpoint.
It's probably something that was already included, but I can't answer that, of course, because Catherine's dealing with the design. So I can have her follow up and get you those answers.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, just because drainage is a huge deal with
Right.
parking lots.
Yes.
I got a little bit of
You gotta
engineering
think that's part
background.
of the idea.
I would think so, but it concerned me that it was excluded from the quote we got.
Yeah. I'll make a note and make sure she follows up.
All right, thank you.
And then the graphic that was provided, I know you're filling in, but the
Yeah.
graphic that was provided, is that what Salina is hoping to do? Because I would just, I would want to make sure that Arrowbrook is also okay with this, because it's going to be, like, the road piece of it is gonna be colliding with our road and make that like a complete four-way intersection. And if this isn't gonna be enough parking, they already are double parking on Arrowbrook Ave. So I worry that this is gonna be a big headache for us.
Okay.
So I really worry about this.
I'll definitely express all this to Catherine, and I'm sure she'll get back with y'all early next week.
Okay, so I think we'll probably hold off on this.
Yeah, that's fine. And, we'll try to put together those questions that you guys had and try to get just look at it.
Make a motion to wait,
Table.
make a motion. So I have a motion to table this one till next month so we can get some questions answered.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have that answer.
No worries.
Yeah, I apologize.
We're not comfortable with this yet for
Yeah.
other reasons anyway. That's
Okay. So yeah, there's nothing for H, nothing for I. Nothing for J. There's no GIS updates for for 2. Number 3 is the Artesia water system. The seal plans have been received in August, and CQ approval is set for next month in October, hopefully. And it's scheduled to go for bid and be awarded in between October and December. And construction start in January 2025.
Mr. President, we had a meeting with Kimley Horn this week. The engineers are doing this project, and all these dates are pretty much online. The only thing that's variable is the easements from Prosper, I believe.
Yeah, so the Artesia water system, I don't think that's going to be as impacted. But when you're talking about the Upper Trinity line, that's the one where the easements are, I think, the main issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one is starting to become, I don't know, annoying is the word, but that's a good word. Because Prosper is kind of waffling a little bit, so we're still talking about it. So.
And the final thing is the Upper Trinity water line. We do have 90% plans under review, and it's still scheduled for construction to start in March of 2025. I don't have anything for 4 or 5.
Questions?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll be sure to pass those questions to Catherine, and she'll be back.
Thank you.
All right.
We still need a motion on that part, right?
Yeah.
I make a motion to table that until next month or whenever we get answers to our questions.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed?
I'll make a motion to accept the engineer's report.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 5, operators report regarding the Artesia utility system.
Chris Cox sent me a message today that he would not be able to be here. In fact, no one from their water department could be here. They have a city event that is mandatory. Everyone will be there. So his report is in your folder under water operator. And the only thing he wanted me to add was that we did have the elevated storage tank cleaned this past month. But we haven't had any water issues. We haven't had any low levels in either the elevated storage tank or the ground storage tank. And that was the last couple of months, we had been having issues like that every day, getting to dangerous levels. But this past month, we haven't had that at all. Or if we did, he hadn't notified me. But
Yeah, the only thing I see, and you probably can't answer this, it would be him, but just on that Teal Parkway pump, it goes from 86 to 73 to 277,000 gallons back at 56. It kind of dances all over the place, and I don't know what to make of that.
I probably can't help you on that one.
Yeah, I didn't figure you could.
The only other thing that I had is on one of the water tests, there was a code for thick avoided test, and that might be what it stands for, SIDBO. When we have those kinds of things, I think it's the second time that I've ever seen a code to a test. It'd probably be good if we could define what the code is for. This way here, it gives us some idea. It was on, I was just trying to look it up. I know that it's available on TCEQ, but I didn't have time to look it up before the meeting. And which water test was it? Yeah, it was on the microbial reporting form. I think it's the second test on page 9. Rejection code, if applicable, please recollect. And it was code VO on one of the tests, on test number 2 at Cross Lake Court. There's no results on that one. And when we have those codes, it'd probably be good so that the board understands what the codes are.
Okay.
I gotta think if we had a problem, he would let us know.
He would, but I'd still like to know what the code was. I mean, I don't know.
No, just with this whole, anytime we get into testing, it's a concern about it, but it's is such a consistent performer.
I would make a motion to accept the operator's report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Discussion and consideration adding up to 1,000 residential water meters with meter registers and endpoints.
So again, I kind of wish Chris was here, but if you remember, Chris has kind of mentioned over the last few months that we've had several problems with some of these meters getting old. We're going to have to start replacing some of them. This past month, there were 400 meters. They had to go out and do manual rereads to actually read the meter. And he made it clear that Salina does not have the manpower because that took like an entire day of like 4 or 5 people to do those meter reads. So they did it, but I kind of got the impression it's like they're not going to supply that free labor, every month. So what he's basically arguing is that, we look at a plan to start replacing these meters or make them more smart meter read so that they can get those. Because if we don't, we're just losing water revenue because they don't reread them, then someone's just getting a free pass. So if they can't read them manually or it won't, then we're going to have to look at replacing these meters. And I believe the month before they had maybe over 300 meters that were reread, and then this month it's 400. So that's why we just put something in here that we're going to have to start looking at replacing those meters.
Yeah,
Don't have to do it tonight.
No, but we're going to get a plan and costing on it, the different types of meters.
The meters that, and again, I wish he was here to tell you specifically, but with the cost analysis, for 1,000 meters, it's going to be about $80,000.
Which kinds of those are the smart, and that there's what we need to have the answers to is, those going to be the smart meters and the manual meters. What are those going to be? So
he pitched us 3 different ones with different capabilities.
I mean, for us to develop the plan, we really need to get solid pricing.
That's not the whole neighborhood either, right?
No, that's only going to give, you got 1,686 meters in Artesia. So it'd be almost 2/3 of it.
We don't manage Savannah and Arrowbrook, so that's Mustang.
The residents wouldn't get a free pass though. They would just get a huge bill and somebody reads it, right?
That's true. I mean, they get
but
whenever it is finally read or done correctly, they're going to be charged for it.
And then that's complaints having to deal with that.
Yeah, but I'm not saying we don't get it. We just need to get the actual costing data is so we can make a decision on how to move forward on it. Without that costing data, we can't just write a blanket, let's do it.
Right. No, I wanted to point out that the residents wouldn't get a free pass, right? Whenever they read that, the cost gets passed through and they're going to get a bill for it. That was my question. I wanted to make sure that was a true statement.
But you mean for what the meter says?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're going to get charged for what the meter readings are. And then, if there's a concern that we've got to go back and reread to validate what the meter stated, and then potentially investigate why it reads that way if there's concern of a leak on our side. But if it's a meter issue, we just need to plan to replace. So we need to know the costing to replace so we don't deal with that.
And directors, one more important note, if y'all recall when he addressed y'all a couple of months ago, another concern is these meters get older than 10 years old, they lose efficiency. And what that means is the paddles and the wheels that turn those dials break down over time, and they start achieving what's known as about a 90 or 95% read, which means that the resident is getting in between 5 and 10% free water.
I remember that point.
That's just another component in addition to the fact that they're having to reread.
I thought he had sent me the name of it, Scott, but I can't find it right offhand. I'm trying to find it.
We can't go very far with this tonight without you.
No. I didn't know he was going to be here until this morning, so I put it on the agenda to have a discussion. We can certainly just table it and wait till next month.
A motion to table, Jonathan, or?
That'll work.
All right. A motion to table this one until next month when Chris is here.
No motion to table.
I'll sign it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 7, report from general manager and police chief.
All right, directors, good evening. With the general manager's operation updates, requests, and recommendations. Item A, as usual, monthly street light outages have been reported to CoServe. Item B, road repair project. I believe, as the Salina engineer said, the repair work continues. CI Pavement is in communication with us for repairs of areas that are upcoming. They place some door hangers on residents of streets that may be affected. They're continuing the repairs in Artesia. They state that they will finish Artesia this week. And repairs in Arrowbrook is the only one that remains. When we had the road closure in Artesia at Candler and Harper, we contacted the Artesia HOA and Prosper ISD to notify them of the closure so residents and school buses could plan accordingly. That seemed to go pretty well. That was only down for 1 week. Item C, we've started preliminary lists of road repairs needed for this fiscal year. Once completed, we'll work with Salina Engineering and make any needed additions or subtractions based on their thoughts. Item D, we're working on updating all the information needed to provide to our insurance broker to renew our liability coverages. This is like if we had any car changes or sometimes I know we've had traded out police vehicles, so you're trading from 1-year model to something different. I don't think we've really had much more than that, but we're just trying to make sure that everything that the district owns is covered under the liability policy. Item E, after dredging the pond between Cotton Exchange and Spanish Moss Drive in Savannah, some algae developed, which it does every year. The dredging company did mention that we would probably see an abnormal amount of algae after agitating the bottom of the pond. We have had on hand from Pond Medics a biodegradable organic solution that eats up most of the algae. We put that in a week and a half ago. Usually takes about 3 weeks or so for it to eat that up. I looked at it today. It is almost all gone. It is maybe 5% of it left. It's not very big.
So
it's done a really good job. Item F, we met with Savannah HOA Infrastructure Committee last week to assist each other in the communication, help the new management company understand mostly what areas the district owns, what they own, whose responsibilities are what. Item G, we're still working with our insurance company broker, adjuster, contractor to get supplements paid for the roof repairs. We issued a check tonight for the contractor, but there's some supplemental items that he has not been paid for. So we're trying to get our insurance broker or adjuster to approve those. So we're working with them on that. August 16th, we worked with the Savannah HOA for the PD to move the squad vehicles to the north parking lot. Now the pool seasons at that time was about to be over, and now it is over. Hopefully that'll free up more space in the front. On August 28th, Jonathan and I met with Denton County Fire Marshal Brad Sebastian. They presented their county plan for the fire contract reform. Item J, we met with T-Mobile 2 weeks ago to look at a program obtaining pricing for providing some connectivity in the police squad cars. We're going to set up a second meeting with Chief Kennedy and Aaron and us and see if that's feasible and if it's not save us some money. We're currently with AT&T, so we'll see if it works out in the same kind of connectivity and if it's a lower price. We did this 2 years ago with all of our cell phones for the district, and we got a much better rate. Okay, we previously sent out 16 letters to homeowners that had trees blocking views of stop signs. The letter asked them to please trim. We've had most residents comply. We will be soon taking inventory of those that did not trim and respond. Probably usually what we do at this point is have Jonathan send them a little bit more stern letter. It's their last chance to do it, or we can trim them and then bill them back for the cost. Item L, we I think we talked a little bit about this last month. I can't remember if we had given you the final outcome. We'd sent communication to Denton ISD and their council about the state-funded $15,000 for security for each school that was committed to the district. And to happen in July, Denton ISD informed us that they ironically just did not budget for that payment. We kind of gave them some very direct language that they could maybe pay for the SRO at the Savannah Elementary on their own. And lo and behold, they decided that, oh yes, we're going to find that money and give you that $15,000. So this may be a battle each year to get that money, but we are getting it. Item N, just a reminder, I know there was some discussion over this. This was something that was decided last year due to low turnout. There's no fall participation for the bulk recycling, hazardous waste and shredding event at any of the three communities. Fire board agreed with this plan. It was deemed just too costly for turnout for fall events the last 2 years. Last fall at Arrowbrook, we had 4 people show up, and last year in Savannah, we had 11 people show up. That cost us about $8,000 to put that event on. It doesn't seem very prudent.
Is that the paint too? Because it seems like we always
yeah, the hazardous waste, recycling of batteries, all that stuff, chemicals, all that stuff involved in that.
So there was some pushback on this on Facebook. The next one will be spring.
Spring.
Let's do a good job.
For whatever reason, spring seems to be a much better turnout on its spring cleaning for people, but that's always well received. Now the board can change it. We can go back to doing a fall one, but that's just what the board had decided.
Let's see how the spring one goes.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Item N, we met with Kimley Thornton engineers on the. Oh, I've already talked about that. Sorry about that. Just citing that. Item O, one of the violations we had from TCQ July inspection was not having a CCCP cross connection control program. This will involve hiring an engineer firm familiar with Elm Ridge water system to create a formal CCCP. A company would then need to be hired to implement it, gathering a complete inventory of backflow devices with the Artesia water system that will require the annual testing. The same company can be responsible to send notices to the responsible party to get the devices tested on an annual basis. We've solicited bids from engineering companies that specialize in this program. We did get one cost estimate back. It's from Hardin Associates Consulting. It's in your packet. The cost table in your photo has a maximum annual cost of $25,000. So we'll need to hire a firm to complete this to dismiss this TCEQ violation. So I don't know, John, how much time do you think we have on this before we need to?
I mean, I think we want to try to get on it as soon as possible. Okay. I mean, I don't think they're not going to start finding us.
Right.
Just keep sending letters.
We could start this. I mean, things like we've done this in the past is if we have an estimate at 25,000, if someone comes in less, maybe approve it subject to not going over the 25,000, taking any lower bids that we get from any other engineering firm.
It's not a if we want to or not kind of thing.
This has got to be done.
Yeah.
So it's not a choice.
I mean, they could fine us $10,000 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
They
No,
get really pissed.
Yeah.
So.
No, I would make a motion to try to over the next few days try to see if we can't get any other bids to not exceed the 25,000.
We will. It's just as of today that we only have one back.
And then if we don't get any other bids, to move forward with the firm we found.
That was second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. We worked for Denton County. Want to thank Director Story for informing us there was a stop sign at Continental Congress and Fishtrap was down. I believe one of our officers temporarily put that up, but we contacted Denton County. They came out the next day and they got it permanently fixed. Item Q, T-Mobile is requesting permission to make minor changes to their cell repeater on our water tower. Jonathan and Salina engineers are reviewing this plan. You looked at it and you're good with the language, right?
Yeah, the legal's fine. I'm just making sure, I want Salina to tell me that it's not gonna wait or.
Right.
And he did.
He did?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's approved. We'll get with them, let them know that's fine. This came up a couple of times, there's some discussion. I want to share this with you guys for information purposes in the GM folder, the document that's labeled 380 Sports School of Participants. It just gives you an idea of where kids are coming from. They don't really track it necessarily by their address or community, but what school that they're in. So if you look at that, you can see from, I believe, the spring and fall of 23, and then now the spring of 24. They've just started their fall season, so I don't have those numbers yet. But if you look at that, it tells you how many kids from each school, from an elementary to middle school, high school, whatever, how many kids are participating and using the fields out there.
Now, on that note, and talking about the parking lot earlier, maybe this needs to be a future agenda item. Seems like there's not uniform enjoyment and approval that all these kids flood in every weekend. What's the desire, for the use of that park? Is that something that we should have a discussion about?
There is a little money there, right? I don't know what 380 pays, but they do pay something, right?
Yeah. They do, and they also share in their revenue from the concession stand.
Do we know how much they are, like how much revenue we're getting from them?
I don't remember offhand. I know we just got their spring season
Concession stand.
concession. They split the profits, and it was about $1,500.
Can we maybe set up, we can do it at the end when we set action items. And we can set an action
Something
item.
to talk about this park and how we're running it. And
Well, at the very least, to look at to review the revenue and see if we should increase the charges. We can at least look at that.
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, exactly. So, but we can add that as an agenda item at the end of the meeting.
yeah, this park needs to be talked about, Greg.
All right. Item S, let's see what we're, item S, just want to let we've spent about 20 hours administration time this past month, retrieving records for many of the FOIAs. Item T, we cleared 39 tickets since last month, so a few working, a few others still open until repairs are finished. Moving on to item number 2, neighborhood updates, events and requests. Artesia, we are seeing a decrease in watering violations finally. I think that's having a lot to do with Chris not having to report to me every morning that we're low on the water tank. So obviously it's finally having some help. Continue to work with the Salina billing team to document all the violations and fines accordingly. Item 2 there, 2 meetings were held the past 2 weeks. President Perry, Secretary Story, Chief Kennedy, the Artesia HOA President Dale Jinks, Prosper ISD personnel, myself, to observe traffic issues along Parker Road going to Rushing Middle School. I haven't checked today, but we should have had, there were 2 areas there with that along Palestine and Nakona that had MUTCD approved crosswalks with the ADA ramps already. Bucky was to be painting those crosswalks there. And let's see, if we want to move back the school zone signs, but Jonathan said that is definitely a Prosper thing. So we've contacted Prosper to see how they want to address that.
So if I may, we met and watched 2 mornings, the morning flow, and it's such a crazy pinch point. And with Prosper ISD, he's the director of construction, the one that came. And then just all of us, what are some common sense, low cost changes we can make to the flow of this. So these are all the elements of this plan. And so far, I don't think we've spent much money at all. What would you say the
crosswalk that we painted?
And if we move the signs and all that, and we're gonna get bids for the other work that we're talking about, so we're.
$100.
Right, yeah. So we're just trying to improve the flow. It's bad. That's the northern entry to the middle school that I'm not sure is sufficient, but because it's Prosper and Elm Ridge, it's two jurisdictions. So let's keep going because we have a few more things there.
Yeah. So along that line, we did get a cost estimate provided by WOPAC for, one, this is moving the crosswalk that's already existing at the Artesia Bridge. As you come over the bridge, that crosswalk is right there. We're thinking about moving that thing further south so that after people come over the bridge, pedestrians should be easier to see. So there's a quote in here in your packet from WOPAC where they put in the new crosswalk and then they close up the old crosswalk. Putting in the new one was $11,270. Closing up the old one was $9,650. And then there's also, we want to see if we could put in a crosswalk between at the corner of Candler and Harper Road. We would need to do a traffic study to do that. You also have in your packet an estimate from the Shazo Group. Again, I've requested further estimates on this. I don't have those back, but just so you have something to look at. They put this in 3 different task orders to do a traffic study. Task 1 and 2 combined is about $6,800, but task 3 is on an hourly basis of about $300 per hour. So I don't know how many hours would go into
this. For the crosswalk close to the school.
Right, the one at the corner of Candler and Harper. So I don't think we can really act on that. This just gives you an idea of maybe some costs until the, I'm sorry, the cost from MOPAC was about $19,000. But we probably need to get the traffic study done first.
Okay.
The Candler one was by the HOA thing there going across the street. And yeah, the one that goes from the HOA thing to Harper. So that's a little piece there.
Can we map this out? So it's like a graphic so they, before I don't know if we're comfortable voting.
Okay. I mean, we can. We wanted to get some thoughts. We had no idea what these things would cost.
Mm-hmm.
So the all-in is what now? I lost track of.
We would have to do the traffic study to determine if we can put in a crosswalk there at the corner of Candler and Harper, because there's no ADA ramps there. I don't even know if it meets the MUTC guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
The traffic study would tell us that. They would say if it warrants it. So, but moving the other crosswalk and closing up the existing crosswalk there at the Artesia Bridge, we can do that.
I got to get a study for the new location. You're moving it, you'll need a study. Can't change that location.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna gotta do that too. But the all-in cost for that, Brandon, I guess what you're asking would be just a little bit over $20,000.
Okay.
And again, keep those numbers in mind when we're talking about what we had discussed we have left over in the budget. Everything is coming off that number.
So it'd be just under 21K. It's 2970. So it's 21K for that. And then it looks like the second section that you were talking about, the traffic study that justified it. If we could do all of that, we'd make it 43.5 if we could do everything. 43.6, but that would require the traffic study, which would make that 50 all in if we could do everything. So
No, there's one more piece.
The bridge.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a separate quote. That quote's in there too.
My question for the crosswalks is, what are we using as like a guideline to say, hey, this actually justifies a traffic study? Because I know Arrowbrook has asked for crosswalks before, and the previous board just completely denied them. So
You'd have
I
to do a
just worry
traffic
about,
study for each crosswalk.
yeah, I just worry about like other communities wanting crosswalks in their neighborhoods. Like, what are we using as like, okay, this meets the criteria to justify a traffic study being
I
done?
wouldn't say we're saying it justified. This is just presenting to the board what the cost would be. The traffic study would have to determine if it's even feasible, or if they would recommend it, or if it's legal.
I think it's just you pay to do a traffic study and then based on that, you can.
But why
I
are we
think your
saying
point,
that?
I think your point is why, how did this one get chosen to do the traffic study where somewhere else another one did not?
Yeah, because the last board said that we can't put in crosswalks in Arrowbrook because it creates a false sense of security for kids. And then they blanket denied Arrowbrook without letting them present.
Well, I mean,
They
I
were
understand.
asking for a lot of crosswalks, right?
Yeah,
How many? Remember?
Maybe there's around 7 or 8.
So is it because crosswalks would be nice, or was it this is a dangerous area?
but did
It
you
is.
talk to Arrowbrook and ask if it was a dangerous area?
I'm asking you.
You guys didn't let her present, so. I just want to make sure that we're having a uniform guideline saying, okay, this is what justifies a traffic study.
So it hasn't come back up since then. If there are problem areas, if there would, this is for school traffic, right? Well, this is a heavy flow. Rushing Middle School, the Winsong kids go to it too. But if we need them in Arrowbrook, bring it to us and we'll talk about it. Definitely.
Do we just hold off on all these till next month, or?
Did you finish on the bridge?
No, I haven't got to the bridge. So Wolfpack did look at the bridge. That retaining wall is kind of decorative. It's not structural. They can remove the interface of the stone wall for about 4 inches and pull it back. That would give the sidewalk there ample room to be ADA compliant while they put a handrail in at the edge of the sidewalk in the street. They would come back in and put some type of stucco to help try to match the stone. And
so credit for this idea goes to Chief Kennedy. We're looking at this bridge, trying to figure out how can we put a guardrail. Just put a guardrail so the kids won't fall into the street when there's not enough room for 2 bicycles to pass. It's crazy. If you just stand there and watch it for 5 minutes, you'll see what I mean. And engineers, everyone says, no, you can't do it. There's not enough room. And Chief said, well, this wall looks really thick, but we could shave it down and go at it that way. And I hadn't even thought of that. And that seems like by far the cheapest, easiest plan. So you have one bid for that?
yeah, this was just to get a cost estimate, just to look at it. We can bid it. I mean, at these costs, these are under the threshold that we have to get a bid. But we can certainly get another one just to compare. But this is far less than I thought this option would be. I was guessing around $50,000 to $60,000, and it's around $22,500 roughly
For the bridge piece?
for the bridge piece.
Wow.
How long did they say it would take to do?
He didn't tell me.
Okay, that's one of those things I think you would want to time it right when school was out or something, so kids aren't going through there. We're not having to reroute kids or.
Yeah, you want to do maybe a, Christmas break or.
Yeah, something like that.
Summer. But I can't imagine it would take more than a couple of weeks, but we'll find out exactly.
Let's find out and see if we, I know that's a good price, but at the same token, while we're waiting, let's just see if we can get some other quotes on it.
Okay. Yeah, all this just kind of generated out of, our meetings and looking at that the last couple of weeks. So we will get a little more information.
I had two questions for you, Rob. You had mentioned the school SRO, and I know we had one at Savannah Elementary. We don't do any other schools, do we?
No.
That's what I thought. That's the only one we do.
Yeah.
Okay. Second one, the director, Nancy Giovanni, and I were talking about the parking lot at Savannah. Do we have an update of when we'd be able to park our cars in the parking lot?
You know, I mean, he told me it was October, but that
October.
and I wouldn't write.
I can get an update from Andrew. What they're waiting on is they're about to start installing scaffolding. We'll cover this in my report here shortly, but all the facade, all the masonry, all the cutting and saws and dust and everything is just about to be messy here, and it's going to be starting back the next week. So once they get the facade up, again, weather dependent. I think October is a fair guess, but if you'll allow me the time to actually confirm that with him on that to see, October, November should be about right.
Okay. Thank you.
And then they have to be moved again when we get ready to put all the other structures, the canopies and all that back in too. So it's, you know, we can get them there temporarily. They've got to be reshifted again.
Any questions about the items in Artesia? I'll move on to item B, Savannah. Like you mentioned, the lake dredging is completed. There is a bladder at the edge of that pond with all the silt that was removed. It needs a few more weeks to drain because we're having to pay by the pound to move that out. So the more water drains out of that and dries out, the less weight it will be. We'll get that moved, certainly probably by next board meeting. And then item C, Airbook, we had nothing to report this month. Number 3, trash collection service updates and issue. The week of August 21st, 2nd and 3rd, 23rd, Waste Connections had a pretty bad week that week. We had several misses that week. But in the last 2 weeks, actually 3 counting this week now, I've only received 2 notices of any misses. So they've kind of picked it back up. And as I said, they usually still get right back out the same day or next day once we notify them of anyone that's missed. Communication's still been good. And then item 2, I know that's the agenda item. We have some contracts and pricing discussion, but that's during that agenda. Any other questions for me before I turn over to Chief? John, Chief Ken, come up, please.
Sure. Good evening, directors, residents. First off, here, I mentioned this last month, but I'll mention it here for another reason. If you recall, I had one with the winners that truck raffle we had last month. Bring this back into the e-bike and the Artesia stuff, guys. I hope we're doing a good job as a department saying we want to communicate with the public, we want to collaborate with you. One of our core values is transparency. If we're having issues, please don't rely on Facebook. Come to us. We're willing to talk to you. Come to the department. We'll sit down in my office and have a discussion. So I think we had a mostly good response on our initiative we've been doing this last week. Despite what Facebook said, only 2 citations have been issued after several warnings for those people. The sergeant on scene today said it was better than it's ever been today. So we're getting some compliance going. Hopefully between our enforcement and the district making their adjustments to solve all some things will all but solved and they're fully solved and they're fully done. But our plan is to start pulling that back a little bit again, hopefully next week. We also don't want to be out there riding the wings of kids. But at some point, the kid not getting hit is more important than the warning or citation they get. The safety is our primary concern. So that's why that point's there. I'm mentioning it. Administration committee's working with PM Wilkerson about the building. Last month, I took 2 of our cops that work out a lot more than I do. And we went to a fitness store together, gym equipment, got an exceptional price. I think the full gym was like $29,000 for all matching commercial equipment, which our officers have never had no way to work out. And every PD other director has a gym for their officer. So we moved forward. That was some of the things we want to change you saw tonight. They're willing to store it for us until the building's ready and then deliver it, follow warranties and set it up. So that'll be one room done out of a plethora of others. In August, as you know, it was our new fiscal year. And again, an effort of talking about what we're spending money on. A lot of our expenditures early on in the PD was equipment. This department's never had extras or things. So to give you an example, every officer's issued a firearm. Well, there was not an extra firearm in the safe. So if an officer was involved in a shooting and the Rangers take that gun for ballistics, I didn't have a gun to hand someone. So that was a lot of our spending early on this year, was getting that extra firearm, getting another LiDAR for traffic control, breaching tools. If you've seen all our Facebook pages, we had the active shooter training recently. Well, through that training, we realized we don't have breaching tools to give to a building that we can't kick. A lot of schools have still frame doors things. So those are purchased for every car that's equipped with that now. Backup portable radios, we didn't have actually one of those. So the list kind of goes on, including some software stuff, like our scheduling software we've been using. It's sleek. It's a free software. It's not conducive running a police department. So Power Time is a new software we purchased. It actually talks to our policy software we already have. Captain O'Brien and a bunch of the sergeants are going through learning that system that will work a lot better than the free software we've been using. And that takes care of that next one. But as you all know, the K9 unit was budgeted and approved this new year. We have picked the handler. The car should be here. I don't know. I'll give up on the cars, but hopefully in a couple of weeks the car should arrive. That handler has already met with our vendor and began some training without the dog. We expect the dog to be getting hopefully from January from Europe to really start to handle our actual school. Officer Simmons was the one that was in our handler. She is an excellent drive, and the vendor we have, who was actually my trainer, I was like, was a handler really well, loves it. So it's going to be a good partnership there. We'll move forward really well on that. So it's going to be a lot of work. Right now, the process is the DEA stuff. So the K9 unit has a kid from our college to train with. She's working on that process now, and it's that alone already been a meeting. So she's learning how to build a division. And what we want to do, we want to empower her to doing this and there's more buy-in to the program. If you remember a couple months ago, maybe I mentioned, we implemented as part of our new policy to start doing annual policy reviews. This is something that best practices, if you was never talking about accreditation, when we're working towards the new building, requires us to do. So actually today, we just finished that process. It took 6 weeks. They go through all of our policies daily. But really for the first time, they're the cleanest they've ever been. So I think we're going to, all that work will make accreditation that much easier as we move forward. Rob mentioned the cars are moved again. I think I mentioned last month, the Captain O'Brien and the sergeants and CID were all going to go to that tabletop exercise, that collaboration issue we're talking about with the major events. That was completed. Really good things came out of that. And so all of our sergeants now have an idea of something. Our event we chose was an incident at the school, at the Savannah Elementary. And you just saw some stuff at Braswell what happened. So kind of a good timing for our sergeants to start thinking, how would we respond to that? So that was good timing, although unfortunate that was going on over there. The school zone lighting by in Savannah here would know at Magnolia and Longleaf is out. We're going to talk about replacing this system because it's 4-officer made SRO. He is having a hard time with this thing. It's an old system. It just doesn't need to be budgeted, honestly, and repair. We've been making small repairs. The company sent us a battery thinking that was going to fix it, put the battery in, but didn't fix it, and now we're having a hard time getting hold of that vendor.
How much is a new one?
I looked at it last year, it's about $25,000. But the question was raised at our meetings in Artesia about putting a light on that school zone. That's why I made the suggestion. We're going to do that. If they were to move those school zone signs over, just start fresh with that part of your budget by the new system. Because I would not.
There's a company called CTC. They're the leading company in the Metroplex that does that. And I've been in contact with them. I've been the one helping Chief Kennedy try to keep that piece of junk working. And I back him 110%. You guys need a new system. Hands down.
It like starts flashing randomly on Saturdays. It's not even flash on Saturdays.
And CTC, the company, that will do that. They support, they service, they take care of all that. He will also have online connection with them, with service people, everyone else. So it would be a better system.
Yeah. Right now, I'm top of the ladder typically. And my cold is on all over. Yeah. All right, moving on to activity. The total calls is 2,620, 679 dispatch, 1,941 were self-initiated. That means 74% of total calls were self-initiated, and that's an increase of 88 calls from last month. Traffic 337 contacts in the month of August, 82% of those people were issued warnings. To date, the performance completed 18,254 calls for service. You have your 2 reports for your total stats and your community breakdown stats. You also have your SRO report attached, nothing really in there to note. I added another heading on your report, the canine unit progress, and you can kind of follow along with that as a pretty good milestone for the department. So keep you all updated on what happens there. Community services, as always, the 2 radar trailers that moves most of the time every 2 weeks. It was part of the first part of the month was at Magnolia and Holly Inn. 71.55% of vehicles traveling under the speed limit. The average speed is actually 23 and some change. The average violation speed, so the ones that were speeding, is about 28 miles an hour. So again, not an issue there. The second half is at Teal and Peppergrass over towards Artesia. 93.5% of the vehicles traveling under the 45-mile speed limit. The average speed was actually 38, and the average violation was 47. Director Payswitch, how do you say your name?
Payswitch, yeah.
Okay. Director P over here brought to my attention some of the report showing like an 80 or 90 mile an hour hit. What happens with radars, and this is why a lot of PDs use LiDARs now. That's what you actually spot. Second one, when 2 cars pass at the same time, a lot of times that radar captures both speeds and it just adds it. I'm not saying that some car isn't going 80, but as much as that's catching on that, I guarantee you it's 2 cars. Don't freak out about that. Freeland continues building a really good partnership with Arrowbrook. I've heard nothing but good things there. If you saw our social media, we started our Drive Like Your Kids Live Here campaign. We're putting on some polls. I think Bucky ordered the ones. What's the status on that, Rob?
I ordered the wrong ones, but they've been reordered.
Should have literally blamed on Bucky. Okay. We have the Talk Hills and Talks event held September 7th. You can turn on that. The National Night Out is coming up October 1st. We're kind of a little bit different here in the district. Typical National Night Outs, block parties that happen. We've tried that here, it doesn't really work. Typically what happens, all the HOAs do their thing, and we just send out officers to each one. The next DEA drug take back, so your unused narcotics prescriptions you have you want to get rid of, is coming up October 26th from 10 to 2. 2 places at Elmridge, the police department, and then at Gathering Place 1 in Arrowbrook that will be on social media. Vehicle maintenance, pretty routine preventative stuff. All the hail damage that happened in the storm in March, April, everything's been repaired, minus maybe the district truck. Working on that. All the police cars are done. Police vehicles, part of our vehicle replacement plans that we budget for, and we know when they're coming and going based off of miles and years of service. We took receipt of one of our 2 2024 Chevy Tahoes. You saw that on social media as well. It's not ready on the street yet. We've had some issues from the upfitter that missed some things, and we're not, we're letting them off the hook on some things that they should have fixed. So it's still back for one more minor thing, and that second Tahoe was actually the K9 car. So that was, take you back. We ordered these 2 Tahoes a while back. We decided to do the K9 unit instead of asking me for $85,000 more for a car. We just converted one of our already ordered cars to a K9 unit. So that's where that other car is going in now. Staffing, Officer York, if you recall, he is one of our newer officers. We sent him to the academy. He was with Officer Nashville, our first 2 ever to go to the academy. He's already received accommodations. On his way to work one morning, he saw a car off the road, and the driver, I believe, was slunched over. He stopped out in his personal car, everything, and made sure that was good. I think he actually had medical attention and things. I remember exactly what the medical issue was, but that guy called in to give him accommodation. So again, we're hiring the right people. It just takes time. We're only 1 down, so we're doing better than most PDs are. So don't say anything. Let it go. So good. Officer Cockrell, the department's still a training program, so the only 2 left in there now is Officer York and Officer Nashville. They're actually already finishing up. Which was just yesterday we are. Our 2 recruits, recruits from Mahan and Stevens are in the academy and anticipated graduation in mid-December. We went and met with them 2 weeks ago, checking their status. Doing great like the other ones, no issues there. So the academy thing's working out real well for us. Nothing for the future. I'll hit the fire department here. We'll remain at 5 or more. Prosper also remain fully staffed. Savannah had 46 calls, 43 from the Naval Station, 3 from the Aubrey Station. Artesia had 16 calls, one of those was canceling the route, and Arrowbrook had 24 calls. Any questions about the police department?
Chief, just had a question about the taco event. People were asking me, hey, we couldn't make it to that. I think it was 7th. Is there another one, or how often are they?
Those are one of those events that we kind of put together sporadically. Nothing's like said every quarter or something. We've done several different Coffee with Cops. So this is actually a version of Coffee with Cops. Just now we put food in there. So, and Tenders helps us out with this. And so we don't keep asking Tender for free stuff. So I'm sure That's the next few months, I imagine, it's gonna be something, maybe not that specific, event, it's not gonna be the same thing.
The weather was definitely better this time around. Last time it was cold and rainy. So yeah, definitely shout out to Captain O'Brien and especially Sergeant Ferguson. She was just amazing playing with the kids. She was going in there doing soccer, like playing tag, just
Yeah, we are the right people.
babysitter. So that's for that. And then I had something else. Anything you need from us for National Night Out?
No, I know, Chuck Ferguson from Captain O'Brien, and some other people that hit the committees and train on from this, you know, what's talking
Okay.
there, so,
Perfect.
I mean, typically what National Night Out really isn't don't get this confused, it's not a police event, it's a community event. And so we're just showing up to your events. So really it's not our thing. So that's why it's here, it's kind of odd. I've never been worked for a PD where you have HOAs doing it, there's only block parties, but it works here. And so we go with the flow. But no, we're good at what we
Okay.
address.
And then whoever is on the day shift in Arrowbrook, shout out to them. They are doing the green tags for people that are parked left to center again. I've noticed they've really been pushing that. And we actually just had an HOA meeting this week and that was brought up as a concern. And then I noticed that they were really hitting that. So I've noticed 2 vehicles now this week with that on. So
But like I said, we hear the concerns. We work for y'all, so we respond to what's needed to be done. We don't catch everything, we can't. So if we're missing something that isn't being done, let us know that we're correcting it.
yeah, I was really, really happy to see that. My last question, the format for the fire department, it changed. It says that there were 3 calls from Aubrey Station 1. Why was that separated?
That's what was on the report.
Okay. Chief, you here? It says 3 calls from Aubrey Station 1.
Yes, so there were 3 calls that were answered, 2 calls that were answered wholly by the crews from Aubrey Station 1. And then 1 call that was a mix. The engine was from Navo and the medic was from Aubrey. In all 3 instances, the Navo station was already on calls in the district, respectfully, Paloma Creek, Providence Village, and Arrowbrook.
Okay.
So a second call came in while the crews were on the first call. That's why we responded from that station. All 3 were low acuity calls. 1 was no transport, 1 was a lift assist, and the other was a very, very minor medical condition.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any more questions on the general manager or police report?
Chief, did you have anything else you wanted to add? I'm sorry.
I don't, other than we do plan to attend National Night Out, the Savannah PTA Touch a Truck. I think those are the 2 that we do plan to attend.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the general manager?
I have 1 more question. Sorry. And Rob, what was the presentation about the county plan for a fire contract? Are we able to speak on that?
Yeah. I mean, we met with the county fire marshal with regard to their plan that they put in place and presented to the commissioner's court about kind of trying to centralize fire service in the county and help out in the unincorporated areas. You know, from what I gathered on that is, you know, from our district's perspective, you know, we want the best, nearest station to serve us. And, you know, if the county and cities are going to work something out, then that's kind of on them. We want the best service at the best price. We obviously support Aubrey, we support Little Elm. And from what I gathered also from the county was that this plan of theirs really has to do with the west side of the county. Because really what their main worry was stations being built on top of each other and trying to get a handle countywide on that. And, that's all kind of done in this area already. And so really, as development starts moving up in the west side of the county, how do they help the cities in planning and assisting in getting the right areas to have stations? So I think that they have a lot of work to do on it, a lot of work with making the cities happy on it. And so I think that for us, for Elm Ridge, I think that they're not going to really, from what I gather, get much involved in it because we have our contracts, we have the stations that are closest to us, we have the service here. They're more concerned about how do people get service in these communities when they start popping up in the western side of the county. And I think is that what you kind of gathered from it too, Chief? I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
We had a different conversation.
Okay, well, there you go. So that's what I maybe fans thought as well. So from our perspective, and I told Rob and I told the fire marshal that we support our local governments and our cities. We feel like they know what's best to provide the service to us, and we're going to continue on that path. And we anticipate no change until there's somebody that tells us we have to change. It's kind of what we're doing. So
I just want to say something real quick. Chief, one of your calls was actually at my house. One transport for my wife, I had to take to the ER and over there in under 2.5 minutes, and it could have been quicker, more efficient, better. So I mean, police should deserve praise, and so do you. So I want to thank you for that.
No, that's really it.
Everyone else? Good. Do I have a motion to approve general manager and police report?
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 8, approve consent to assignment and First Amendment to solid waste and recycling services with Waste Connections.
Yeah, so we had talked about the contract with Waste Connections renewing and potential costs that were associated with that. So we've been talking to them, and what they have told us is what this amendment does. It's obviously confirms the renewal, but the annual will be a CPI increase. So, cost price index. So, this year is going to be a 3% increase. And then the years after, whatever that CPI index is what the price adjustment will be. This is, Rob had got quotes on potential new carriers that were much more than this. And so, I think that this is a good result for the district. And what this amendment does is just changes the pricing, because in the current contract, it specifically says year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. So what we're doing is we're just going to the CPI index now, because we found that throughout that first contract we had with Rhino, that was within Waste Connections, is that with COVID, with recycling costs, gas costs, it just wasn't really the best for both sides to have that specifically laid out. And there's so many variables to trash collection. So this will help. It's good for us because that's CPI, whatever that's going to be, but also, it's good for them as well to make sure that they can keep up with the costs they need to keep up with.
It'll equate this first year to about a 60-cent increase per resident per month.
And I think the big thing that we need to touch base on when we look at other quotes and other trash companies, Waste Connections is the only one that allowed the clause for us to find them for, when they're not doing their job, to be allowed. So that actually gives us the ability to hold them accountable from a financial perspective if they're not doing their job. None of the other waste collection authorities would allow us to do that. So that gives us some ability for accountability on their side from a financial perspective, which I think is a bonus along with the way this contract's written out.
Yeah, so I was actually where I was going to go. This is an addendum to that, right? So we keep that verbiage.
Contract is in place. It's only changing Exhibit A, which had the pricing on it.
So
which is there.
The length of contract is
5 years.
And CPI is not an index that I follow on a regular basis. How volatile is that index? Does anybody?
It's not hugely volatile.
Brian, it's not, but
I would
During
say in
COVID, it had
the
a,
past, it was not. I don't know.
well, I
about
mean,
now.
you have,
yeah, kind of.
inflation over the last, 4 or 5 years has been volatile, let's be honest. But, if you take a look, the highest CPI index for like Social Security, when they've adjusted the index, I think was I want to say it was an 8% increase supposedly is what they were talking about when they went by CPI. I don't think they actually got it. I don't know for sure, but the CPI was 8%, was the highest that CPI ever hit during the max inflation.
I mean, it's pretty standard stuff, really.
Yeah.
A lot of people index do that.
See, what adjust CPI is what they include in it. So it's kind of like when you look at your inflation index and they say that inflation is only 2%, but if they exclude volatile items, like they exclude rents, they exclude gas, they exclude food items and things of that nature, CPI excludes a lot of those same things. So your CPI index doesn't include a lot of the volatile things that actually spike your inflation. Of course, the government excludes them as well. So, in all honesty, so that's why.
But it says they take it down to garbage and trash collectors in the CPI. So I got to think that's
So from 95 till way past 05, I don't see it above 6%. In the 70s, it made it up to 14%. But it was, yeah, but it's in a pretty narrow, and it dipped down negative for a while. Wow. I guess that was the crash. I don't see anything here concerning. It's not super spiky. I'm good.
And just as I emailed you guys, these are revisions that I've made. I talked to them on the phone about it. They didn't seem like it would be a problem, but I haven't heard back from them yet. I also want to point out these say Denton County Freshwater Supply District, because this is going to be the same amendment to the Palomas as well. And I was working on the general template, not Elmridge specific, but obviously say Elmridge and there went for you guys. So I would ask that you approve it with the changes that I have made.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve this amendment to our existing contract for CPI.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 9, discussion on status of sidewalk adjacent to Fishtrap.
But, yeah, I'm just curious, where are we at on that in terms of replacing that sidewalk?
I mean, that's kind of a board decision, but I mean, we're still kind of in a hold because Atmos has told us don't do anything until they understand where their line is going to have to move to expansion of Fishtrap. They don't have all the final plans from Denton County, so they haven't informed us of where that's going to be, or if they'll give us permission to make any changes in their easement. So
We're waiting on the county and then.
Any idea when we'll hear back? Weeks, months, years?
Not weeks, probably months.
Mm.
I thought you were meeting with Little Elm and Dunn County.
We did meet with Denton County, and that's what they have not finalized any plans yet, so that's something they could show us.
They emailed me and said that they just finished the first schematic draft, I think they said.
County plans, or is the whole of the gas easement?
It's both. I mean, the county has to finalize their plans so that they can provide those to Atmos, so Atmos knows where they're moving their line. And then once they know that, then they can tell us yes or no.
Yeah, they just finished their first schematic draft. Just had minor revisions for their design and engineer that they'll incorporate.
So what does that mean? Will it show where everything is, schematic draft?
I'm not sure. I mean,
What
usually
is
the
schematic
first
draft is?
review of that stuff is their first set of plans. You see how our engineers talk about that. So, when we're talking about the water line, there's 60%, there's 90%, so until they have a final plan, I don't think that that's going to change. That's
I know
just
they
my
were-
interpretation of what I'm talking to them about.
They were hoping to start expanding next fall.
So we should know by then.
Yeah,
Mm.
before, I think. So I don't think there's anything really to do here other than project update, right?
Mm. We need a motion.
No, sir.
All right. All right. Number 10, discussion consideration for traffic signal at Artesia Boulevard and First Street.
So last month, Director Perry and I had a different, we heard differently when we talked to Prosper. So I circled back to Prosper and talked to the engineer who says they've got about 60% plans, but they don't intend to press forward is what he told me. The flow from east-west on Prosper's traffic doesn't need a light is what he said. So really the only one that's kind of hurting right now is Artesia. We did talk to that school guy you had, and he said he thought that they were probably going to do something.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of a conflicting message between what Prosper is saying and what the ISD is saying.
Mm. I agree. I don't see a need for action on this one this evening. Maybe we can monitor it, and is my thought there, but what are you thinking?
I don't know that my opinion's really changed. Prosper's ask was like $200,000, and I saw that and about flipped out. I was like, there's no way we could pay that. Even if we wanted to pay that, I don't think we could pay that. I would like to do something. I think it's kind of being a good neighbor to do something. I go back to what I said previously of if you have to replace a fence in between two houses, you don't just point to your neighbor and say, hey, you fix it. I mean, you kind of split the cost. I don't want to split the cost though, but I do think we should buy some goodwill, help our residents and kick in a little bit. And I think a little bit in my mind, I mean, I wouldn't do more than like 25 grand or something, but and then you get to where, is that an insult when they're looking for 200,000 and you offer them 25 grand? So I don't really know that I have an answer here just yet, but I think we should do something because our residents will get benefit from this.
I had a question. So when you guys met with them previous month, Mike said that Prosper was going to put the light in and you said they weren't. And then you met with them again and still not clear whether Prosper's going to put the light in.
What Prosper told me is the traffic study said that it was recommended, not required, and they didn't have to do anything. So they weren't intending on doing anything as far as what he could tell.
I mean, I think I would say this. I mean, if I was the general manager of Prosper and I was talking to us and I thought I could get money out of us, I would accept it as well and say, hey, and I think the same would go for us. If we could go to Prosper and say, hey, we've got to put in this crosswalk or this stoplight or this, and it just was your property, I think you should help pay for it. I don't think if we offer them 25K in goodwill, no offense, between communities when you have budgets and stuff that everybody's facing, I don't know that that's always going to get reciprocated financially in the same way. That doesn't mean that they're not going to, maybe help you out with easements or something in the future, but they may not be able to financially help you or want to financially help you back as a return, or it might come in other forms. I think the best thing to do is sit and wait and really see what happens and let this play out and see what the impact is.
Yeah, because when is the school should be opening next fall,
Next
right?
year.
They're going to have to do something
At that
quickly.
point,
And I
yeah.
mean, we're going to know in a fairly short amount of time during this school year what's going to be going on. Why would we want to volunteer to spend money up front if they're going to pay for it as part of the school district budget? Why would we want to volunteer to put money into that? And technically, I would say if we were going to spend money on that we should do some sort of a traffic study, just like we would do with crosswalks, to see what the impact would be for our Artesia residents and see what that impact would be for us to see if it justifies it from our standpoint.
Oh, we need one.
Yeah.
I don't need a
But,
traffic.
no, but I'm just saying before we spend
They've
the
already done
money-
that though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They've already paid for
Now, the
that.
question is it
So-
really going to happen or not with what, regardless of what we do? And we're getting kind of mixed signals from the city and the ISD.
That's what I'm saying. Sit and wait and see what they do. If they don't do anything, then maybe, and if they don't do anything and they still want us to help, then let's ask them for the traffic study to see what the traffic study shows and base it off of that.
You've done a traffic study already?
But let's not jump the gun on this and just volunteer to hand out money.
Yeah, I worry if you do something like that, you're gonna insult them more than help your case too. That is floating around in my head.
I appreciate it. Be a good neighbor, pay your share.
Yeah.
But
And I mean, we do own 1/4 of that intersection, right? So I think it's kind of crappy if we say, screw you guys, you pay for it. I think we have some responsibility there.
But they were already gonna pay for it, wasn't they? Well, Mike said it.
They say they're not, right? It's a game of.
Originally, it was supposedly passed as part of the school bond. When they put the school bond together, the traffic light was originally a part of that school bond.
we're talking about doing some other things within the district to improve school traffic flow that we're contemplating paying for. That's kind of that's working together. So wait and see. Wait till next month. They want to leave it on the agenda.
It doesn't sound like there's any support here to do anything. So I would say, yeah, this is, we shut it down and wait and see, I guess.
Has there been any accidents over there?
At Artesia, first night, I would guess the answer is yes. Right about
But not enough to,
Yeah.
like, we've had a ton over at Denton Way and Fishtrap. So, to the point where Prosper they had to lease a temporary
Yes, yes,
like,
that's bad
because,
there.
yeah. So, I mean, if there is truly a need because of like accidents, once the school does open, then they will take action and do so quickly.
I think they're that school is going to be a big traffic impact.
I just look at, they're building that Costco across 1385, right? They've already got lights up there. The place hasn't even opened yet. And meanwhile, you've got residents waiting in traffic, waiting an hour to get out of the neighborhood in Artesia.
Mhm.
And everybody's like, sorry.
I want it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel for those residents. That's a tough spot to be in.
I don't know that us agreeing to pay or not pay is going to change the timetable. I didn't get the impression talking to them that it's going to happen when they do it regardless. But I don't like this uncertainty. I really want a straight answer. And in meeting with Town Prosper and ISD, they are two entities. Okay, separate budgets, separate leadership. You're dealing with two, and they're all great. They're great. We're all interested in child safety. This is the main focus of this. Let's get the kids to school safely.
I would make a motion, we table this, see what happens.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed.
Unopposed. Consider in taking any action to work with City of Prosper and Prosper placing an okay, so.
Sir.
I did. Oh, thank you, sorry. Discussion of taking any action on use of e-bikes in the district.
So what is driving this, I guess? What is the problem we're trying to solve?
We've had rampant, it's not just e-bikes, it's the scooters. And we had a lot of incidents in Artesia, but two girls got hit in a crosswalk by a driver. So that's scary. That's scary.
By an e-bike driver or?
No, a car driver hit a scooter with two kids.
Isn't that a crosswalk by the bridge?
Yeah, it's like at Canyon Ridge, so just north of the bridge. And driver's probably at fault. Kids were in the crosswalk, but they zip across so fast. I feel for the driver. I was given a very good eyewitness description by a lady who was on site, and she told me how it happened. And they didn't get slammed. They didn't get hit that hard. they're not hurt that badly. It's not, but it's still scary. But to bat it over to Chief, I think the short answer on this is there's not a whole lot we can do.
Yeah, so to help you all make a decision here, we bring a couple statutes here. Attention. Transportation Code 106 on e-bikes, you cannot prohibit them with the roadways, so you can't. You can prohibit them on the sidewalks. That's the only option you have. When it comes to the scooters, you can prohibit all of it. However, again, because we're in district, there's a play on words. The statute says a county or municipality may prohibit. District's not in there. We're running the same problem with the CCP, the Code of Criminal Procedure, with the working powers of the police department. And really, that would be something where Jonathan's going to have to just clarification or something. Because if we push it to the county, it would be county-wide. They'd be banning it. They're not going to do that. So I'm not sure if the district would have really authority to do much. I mean, the main thing you have per this, the way it reads is a department or a local authority may prohibit the operation of the bicycle and sell the e-bike. But so scooters, just talk about districts or unincorporated areas.
So when it comes to the scooters, can we see if, from a county perspective, we could do similar like we did with some of our noise ordinances and some of that stuff and see if the county would support that for the district for scooters?
Yeah, well, since this would be a traffic regulation, we would need to go to the county like we do for other traffic regulations, because of Brett Chief's point, we don't have the authority to do that. And so we would have to go to the county and ask them, because it's the county municipality, to ban them on the sidewalks. Now, I don't know if they can do it for the pieces, because I know that Salina banned theirs just in their town square.
They have an ordinance. It's a municipality.
Well, I know, but the county.
But that's what
they can create an ordinance that says just the town square.
That's what I was kind of talking about, that we have ordinances that we've asked the county to allow us to enforce in county court or in district court. Can we not, for the scooters and then for the e-bikes for the sidewalks, go to the county and have them review the verbiage to see if they can enforce it?
Disregard the transportation bill. Our regulations, our ordinances come out of the water. Okay. So we can control district property on the water code. When it comes to regulation of vehicles, it's a whole different code. So that's why the wording comes in. That's why I've asked Rob to get with Representative Patterson, that letter that I wrote about changing some of these statutes to start including districts, because it's always municipality. We operate like that, but you limit our powers because we can't. We have issues, really legitimate issues at hand we can't take care of because of the way the laws are.
Okay, that answered it, because I was just curious, because the other ordinances we passed, even though they're district property, we found a way to kind of enforce them. I didn't know, even though that this was traffic code, we could kind of do the same thing and kind of work the verbiage.
That's opinion above many of our heads.
That's why I was asking if Jonathan, if we could figure that out, if it's something we could, even though it's transportation code, could we do like we did with some of our other ordinances and find a way to enforce those like we did some of our other, since it's on district property? Is that something we can try to find to see if there's a way to look at?
Yes, I will look into it more, but I can tell you that you're probably going to have to go to the county if they have the power to do that. I'll have to talk to Chief about that. But you know, it's when you're talking about traffic and vehicles, like that is completely. Okay. No, it's different than.
It's completely different.
Yeah, than what the other stuff we said about, hey, you can't, do this on district property.
I'm still unclear what's going on here. Are we trying to push them into the street or push them into the sidewalk?
I don't think we've got that far.
Okay.
Chief, this recent effort, you're stopping children, under what?
For violating the code, the traffic code. So self-feed lives on the roadway, which is fine, but they're running the stop sign.
Okay.
That's causing that. Or they're not using the crosswalk when they're coming off the things, or they're just starting across traffic, going to, deal with the traffic control device. And that's really all they just come across, because they operate on those same laws. So I was just giving you context to say, you may not be able to limit the use. You can educate, which is what we're doing. You can send things to the school district when we have a traffic plan. If you do change your crosswalks, like those that we're talking about in our meeting, and send it off to their Tuesday folders. Here's where we want you to go on the sidewalk. Here's the route we want you to take. I'm just providing information saying, I don't think as a district you're going to be able to say you can use it. And I could imagine the backlash you'd have if you did do that. Because it's sparks get your wind saw all the way over there.
Chief, is this something that only happening in Artesia? Because I haven't noticed
that e-bike or. Yeah, it happens everywhere. It's just, again, very, it's just this culmination, just like all the worst scenarios are out there. You have all this, and that Russian middle school takes in a lot of kids, not just our kids, all the ones on all that area. And it's supposed to be building another school out of Cleveland, so that will alleviate some of it.
Next year.
So hopefully next year won't be as much of a problem.
What is this? Is only a few kids doing this, or are you?
Well, there's a lot of kids. It's a major issue.
I've never seen.
Yeah.
Oh, show up at 7:30. Yeah, anytime.
Yeah, I would keep doing what you're doing because I would hate for some kid to run a stop sign and get flattened or something, right? I mean, that's about the best.
Yeah, and they'll understand, we are running overtime by doing this right now. I've got, not every one of my officers in bike doing that, so it calls the interest. So we're bringing people in on overtime to do this right now. I can't do this forever, not without it cripple my overtime.
I think this effort was effective.
I want to today proved it.
Yeah.
I mean, they said carrots don't want anything bad at all.
Mhm.
It may be something we run this week. We plan for a 2-week campaign, but we don't need 2 weeks, we need to 1 week, and then we monitor. If we start having an issue, we revisit this again, get a little reminder. We've done bike rodeos in the past, and we don't have attendance on those, so that hasn't worked. And so this has seemed to be the most effective way. The social media campaign, the officers out on bicycles and cars, and it's not just kids or stuff, we're talking adults in cars that aren't paying attention to kids either. So, but again, Mr. Knowledge for y'all, we are using overtime to do this, to focus that effort. Otherwise, those officers are being called to calls and it's not doing anything. So I have to specifically put the officers on this task. So it can't last forever. But hopefully through the education, this isn't a problem anymore.
I think it would be kind of cool to do almost like an annual initiative, like if there is some national bike day, and then make that week be like a bike initiative week where like we do this.
I mean, yeah, if you can, I don't think it matters what week it is. We've done bike rodeos for years. It doesn't matter what week we play it on. But I think, in my opinion, that this is something we do every, week or the week of starting school. The officers are out on bike patrols. We know this is a problem area. We don't see any sessions in Savannah, but we can hit it hard with, verbal education, observation,
and then timing. That's good.
Yeah, we're late. We're late to the game here, and this is just became an issue. So I think we get ahead of it next year. We can resolve it. It took a week. We've already seen results. So this is going to go early next time. And hopefully again next year the kids are going over here to Winsong and
it slows down a little bit.
Great job to your officers.
I don't have any action here. Does anyone?
No.
Number 12, consider taking the action necessary to work with Prosper and Prosper ISD in placing crosswalk signage, sidewalk, and other traffic. So
kind of already covered that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we just go back and get more information, more pricing.
Okay.
I think all this is going to really be predicated on the traffic study, if we decide we want to do that or not.
How much is that?
The base rate that then was for that one crosswalk was $6,800 base, and then there was $300 per hour. Let me pull it back out.
What part of the traffic study lets us, is it the school zone and the?
Yeah, what does that do for us? Is that your question?
Well, no, whatever we need to do to increase the school zone and do just that one pinch point, the cheap stuff that we've identified, that some of it we can't do yet. What do we have?
Are you talking about the distance of the school zone?
Yeah.
That's regulated by MUTCD, normally anywhere between 200 and 300 feet. Most traffic safety engineers will not allow you to go beyond 300 feet because people get kind of lost of, I'm outside of that. And it depends on the boundary lines. It's usually of not as the crow flies, but it's the nearest driveway of that. So 200 to 300 feet, it depends on any engineer you talk to, but that's pretty much standard as far as where the school zone, safety zone would start.
We have several items here that they've got to do for their tasks, number 3 and 4, coordinate with reviewing agency and propose study assumptions, review comments and request changes from the reviewing agency to the technical memorandum and or plans, discuss comments for reviewer and clarify any ambiguities and or questions, prepare and provide responses to review comments, provide a copy of responses to the client and submit to the reviewer. So if directed by the client, complete agreed upon changes and revisions to the final report, submit a revised final document to the client, provide any additional traffic
Okay.
engineering services that are not specified. I mean, you can see this
Yeah,
is kind of a,
okay.
it's an open
I think
door
this is where we
there.
are. We don't have enough information to take action. We need-
No, but you're asking about the cost.
Yeah.
That's the variable there that's beyond the $6,800.
Mhm.
I can tell you the last time we did a traffic study just for one intersection, it was about $15,000 is what we paid for one intersection.
Okay. I'll make the motion. Rob and I will continue to work on this and come back next month with more detail.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thirteen, approve and execute proposals for renewal district insurance policies, related discussion, and take any action.
So those are not ready yet, 13 and 14. Your policies don't expire until into October. As Rob said, we're still working with the police department on all, making sure we have all the property, equipment, everything in the policy. So there's no action on 13 or 14.
I'd make a comment on 14 though. We did reach out and they're working on the proposals, and we did get confirmation because the letter originally stated it was due before our next board meeting. And we got Corey from the insurance company confirmed that it wouldn't be ready until, or it wasn't required until late in November, until after our October board meeting. So we've got time to work on the proposals yet. So and the only reason I wanted to bring that in addition is because when we were talking about the cybersecurity policy last month, the letter made it sound like we had to make a decision this month, and that's not the case. And we got email from the insurance provider confirming that.
Okay.
The motion to table 13 and 14.
Second.
Yeah, a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 15, report from project manager regarding progress of the district administration building.
Right, directors, good evening. You'll see from the first picture of the packet there, that's the most recent aerial provided to us by Crossland. If you haven't been by the area lately, there's a lot of progress being made. The drier weather, of course, and now the fact that we've had that slab has lended itself to a lot of catch-up work going on. Going to the first page to cover some of the completed tasks and objectives that have taken place over the last month. Every bit of the exterior cold form metal framing, those are the big heavy metal columns that kind of hold everything together. That has all been completed. The weatherproofing is substantially complete, and we'll cover some more details on what this weatherproofing is as I go through my report. They've got the second floor roof ladder installed and the hatch opening is cut. Mechanical rough-in on the first and second floor is underway. The fire suppression rough-in on the first and second floor is inspected, tested, and approved by Denton County Fire Marshals. So that is already done. First and second floor framing layout, walls are going up now. Roof decking, as you'll see from that aerial photo, the roof decking is complete, and that's kind of the substrate to that. We've got the roofing that will be coming on next week. Crossland Construction Company also working with RPGA. If you remember in my last report, it talked about engineering design issues on the second floor where there were about 6-inch voids that didn't come up over there. So there was a lot of additional metal, steel that had to be added with tubing and angles to where those concrete floors could be poured adjacent to the walls there. And that was an engineering snafu with RPGA. All the CMU is complete. The cinder block, every bit of that is done. All the storm shelter exterior walls, and the next bullet point is the exterior mock-up. That's been complete. It kind of gives you a visual depiction of what the colors are going to look like together with the brick, the mortar, the stone, and then the type of windows with the color and built-in, I guess, tint that are to those windows there for that there. So they got that put up for everybody to see. It's on the west side of the building there. As far as the action items, I do have a couple of things for you. It's been quiet the last few months, but I've got before you to consider and approve potential change order 9002 in the amount of $40,656.71 and potential change order 9003 in the amount of $21,316.01. In your packet, you'll see PCO number 9002. We'll talk about that first. Again, as you're aware, internal staff, the general manager, police chief, myself, the engineers or the architects rather, and the construction company go through everything. Chief brought up some things as things are starting to come together now about some revisions. In here, this includes the item number 1 on this revision of the what we call ASI 001. It includes bullet resistant paneling in front of the dais. In other words, where you said it is very common practice for most city councils nowadays to have that in the event of an active shooter or situation like that, that you can protect yourself and seek cover back behind the desk that you're setting in there. So item number 1 includes that. It also includes some security sheetrock meshing. You've heard Chief talk about best practices, things like that. Well, it's the police department. We're going to have some walls that's going to need some security meshing, especially around holding cells, the armory, the suspect bullet, things like that. So, as these items were brought to attention, we was like, okay, yes, this is, what he's comfortable with, what he wants in the building. So we've asked him to put these numbers together so we can get these items completed. He's also asked for a window in the juvenile holding room. At no time will a juvenile ever be left alone in those rooms. But we have another person in there. Again, transparency, and especially with the juvenile there, you want outside of yours. You don't want an adult and a juvenile in a locker room without a window. Exactly. There's some door and hardware revisions on some access control and security that Chief's team noted, and he brought forward to the table on that. That includes card readers, security cameras that need to be added along those areas too. Keep in mind, a lot of these things are dictated by Siege's policies, the federally mandated policies that you've got to have this. Some of them are security related. A lot of them all kind of tie in together there. When you move things, add readers. There's also needs for fire alarm relay modules, mag locks, those type of things with the additional door that Chief mentioned. And then when you add in the profit overhead bonds, builder's risk, and insurance, you see the total price there. That's what it gets to. It brings it up to the amount of $40,656.71. This could be taken out of contingency. It is not common practice to do that. Your contingency is, oh my gosh, the price of metal just shot up. Oh my gosh, we just had a price increase on this and that. This will severely diminish your contingency. The common practice is to go back before councils and boards with this as a change order, just like your engineers do on the major projects, and not take it out of your contingency fund. And that's what has been recommended by Crossland Construction due to the small amount of contingency that we do have for this project. The second one, and then I'll open it up for questions if you have it, 9003, and this is going to be revised door hardware. This again is unfortunately things that have to be done by federally mandated requirements, new requirements. There's a lot of new things that have happened since the building plan was originally designed by the architects, and now the updated codes that the county goes by. So in order to meet storm shelter requirements, these are necessities that have to be done in order to get a certificate of occupancy for this building. So again, it's door hardware. It's first aid kits that have to be in there. And then the most expensive thing is going to be added circuitry for inverters that are required for the storm shelter code. And this is a newer code. If you recall, we had to go to a third party company called Farnsworth. They're the ones that have been making sure the louvers are working. This is the backup system that should a tornado come and we lose power, you've got to be able to articulate those louvers and get positive air, fresh air in, and the bad air out. So this is what makes up the price of this. And these circuitry and these inverters are very expensive. Add in your profit and overhead bonds, builder's risk and insurance on that, and it comes to $21,316.01. So those are the two change orders that I have before you tonight. I'll pause right there to see if there's any questions in regards to that.
I mean, I think my comment, not everybody may agree with me on this, but on the first change order, 9002, I mean, I agree with the majority of it. That, I don't think we need bulletproof paneling in front of our dais, and I hope I'm wrong on that. I would hope nobody would come in here, but I just don't see us needing that in front of our dais, for example. And
that would probably be about I bet out of that breakdown, I want to say it's around $5,000 or $6,000. So by all means, if the board says, "Hey, we don't want it,"
I mean, the rest
fire
of it,
away, then we'll.
Well, I'm just saying the rest of it seems to be related to the PD side and like the sheetrock for security mesh for armory and all of that stuff. Agree with that. I don't have an issue with the other line items on the first change order, but you know, and call me hopeful or whatever you might want to call me. To me, that's just not something that I feel that we need to spend money on for bulletproof paneling in front of the dice. And I hope I'm wrong on that.
I think it can always be picked up later, I would think, if it's really the state of the state changes and we get in a rough neighborhood. I mean, we can always do it later.
I mean, yeah, you could always update it later, I'm sure. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think my philosophy on this is I would hope that we're all, you know, you're always going to have disgruntled community members in every community that are upset with the decision we make every now and then. That's going to happen. We're not always going to make the decisions everybody's happy with. I would be hopeful enough that we don't have people that would want to, you know, try to come in and do something to that extent because of it. And maybe that's just hopeful thinking, but it's not something that I would want to spend money on right now.
I agree, and I don't think we're talking anymore about that because anyone ideas.
I agree. I just don't want to spend the money on it. It has to be brought up and not spend the money on it.
Of course.
Where does this come from? This $60,000, give or take?
That'll be your general fund. Yes. So that would definitely, if the board decided tonight to approve everything minus that, then whatever that cost savings is for that would be subtracted from that amount. Absolutely.
So this is the first one.
This is the first one.
Through this
It's been a very, very smooth process. And I don't want to make promises that I can't keep because again, I don't know everything about the market and conditions as we're getting into the finish out of this building. But I also know that through the value engineering that it's going to come in under budget. I'm confident I can make that statement. The next one is I would be very hopeful that the contingency funds that are out there don't have to be used and that would repay for this at the end of this project. That's the goal and the hope for everything. That's why we have the contingency, but it's kind of a kick the can type of scenario. You know, if the board said right now, if you give me direction and Rob to say, no, we want to take it out of contingency, then you kick that can. And what we do, we might come back 2 or 3 months, hey, this happened and now we're coming to you for that. So either way works, but I think it's important to be transparent. Here's what it is. I'm presenting the recommendation from Crossland because this is how they normally work with the other cities. And I agree with that. This is not a cost overrun. This is some changes that were what we call owner asked for. You know, we wanted to make a few changes inside for the police department and keep them happy. So that's, you know, and they're all with the solid reason. So
some of them we have to make.
Some of them we have to make. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the only other thing else I really think you could cut, and I wouldn't recommend. I mean, you look what happens. It's happened at Dallas PD. It's happened to McKinney PD. You know, the chief is asking for bullet resistant film on the lower level windows, and you've got offices there with civilians. So if you had an IRA person come up there on PD and open fire on that building, it gives them some level of protection, and that's the cheapest route. He's not asking for bulletproof windows. He's asking for a cheap route with just a little bit of added protection over there. So that's, I think that's very realistic. And again, if it was my police department, which it's not anymore, I would be telling you, I would be asking you for the same thing, at least for those lower levels.
I would make a motion to approve the 2 change orders minus the bullet resistant paneling at the front of the dais.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, directors. Okay, moving on to owner architect contractor meeting updates. As again, bi-weekly in-person meetings are held between Umbridge staff, RPGA architect staff, Crossland staff to ensure communication, continuity, and consistency. The last meeting we had was on Thursday, September the 12th. Some of the meeting notes that came out of that, you know, well, until today and tomorrow, the summer heat had not been quite such a factor. Summer's making one last push at us, but they haven't had any issues with their workers or heat exhaustion, heat stroke issues, so that's been good. The current submittals from suppliers and contractors right now, we're looking at rooftop equipment screens, and so they're picking the final materials and colors on that, trying to pick colors that are going to match with the bricks. So they're waiting for details on that. Building canopies are currently under review. If you'll go back to that first picture I put on the cover there, you'll see the big steel frame, the main first floor canopy that comes in over the what's going to be the lobby there. That's what's going on. But if you looked at where there's actually a worker standing there above that, there's another more of a decorative top canopy that was designed with that building. And yet another architectural flaw, there is no steel to attach the canopy to. So again, these aren't major things. I mean, it does happen, but there's going to have to be some steel placed. So we're looking into that. And then there's a small rooftop conflict on the second floor back behind there where the roof levels are different. And previous experience doing this, you don't want different roof levels. You have one level that's lower, it's going to be subjected to leaks and entry points. So they are working with engineers to find a way to reframe that to keep that second story roof up there where it needs to be.
So that one, the canopy, and then earlier the steel void, then how does that get paid?
So that's to be determined. I'll defer to your legal counsel on that as far as the contract you have with RPGA, your architect. I do know for a fact there are clauses in most architect firms that basically say, hey, if we make a mistake, it's our mistake, but we're not responsible, more or less.
I would like to look at the canopy one because that seems to be a major oversight that you don't have a frame to connect that to. You know, something being off 6 inches that doesn't get thing lined up, I can see that happening in a design. But when you don't have anything to attach your canopy to, that seems like it's a lot more major issue.
What are the dollars involved on this?
We don't know yet. And just to add to what Rob said is when I come back and I find that, it would be my recommendation that the district don't pay anything for that. To me, it was an error made by professionals that were hired to do this job. Now, yes, on a scale of this big, you are going to have this. You know, talking with the Crosslane, this is very, very common. But just because it's common doesn't have to be accepted, and that the district should pay the difference on that. So I just don't want to make guarantees until I have time to meet with, till we get the bill, we sit down and talk to the contractors more at length, find out what the costs involved are with that. And then, again, meet with legal counsel to see what position that the district has in this role here. But as soon as I can get that information and there's dollars added to it, that it will be in this report.
Tens of thousands?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Or more?
Yes. Yes. I'm guessing the three things in the rooftop conflict probably when all put together, 40,000 maybe.
Okay. Not 400,000.
Not hundreds of thousands, no, tens of thousands. Yeah. And again, that's my guess. But again, I haven't got the raw numbers yet, so I'm taking a guess, which I shouldn't be doing. But those are the current conflicts and things that they're working through right now. On the RFIs, we're currently working on a key schedule. Rob and Chief and I met today on determining how, who, what, when, where has keys to different offices and putting templates together on that. We've got about another month on that before that's due, but we made very good progress today. So we're working on that. Did have a minor, one more issue, storm shelter low roof elevation conflict with some mechanical, with the MEP, with the ductwork coming into what's going to be the council chambers. They had to lower the ceiling about 6 inches, so it's gonna be like 9'6" for the first couple of feet, and then it'll go up to 10 foot and then up again. So it's actually going to be a multiple tiered, kind of like what you see here as far as that. So it's cosmetic. So there's not any issue. They've already found a workaround. There's no dollar amount change to that at all. So it's something that they're working through on that. And then there were some brick ledge conflicts that required them to move a wall just a bit here and there. You got to have something to set bricks on. So there was another architectural mishap there where there's about 1.5 inches difference where they had to finagle some walls, but that's already been done. And again, there was no cost associated with that. Got the schedule here to attach to it, but we'll talk about some of the timelines here going forward. As far as the other potential change orders, again, Crossland's still looking at landscaping plans, quantities to look at trying to cut some costs there. And looks like I think we've got the smaller wall mounted eye watch stations, and there was a some cost savings in that. Current tasks, again, the interior framing is ongoing. The rough end for the electrical is going wonderfully. It's a 3-man crew doing your electrical work out there, and the conduit and stuff that's run out there is beautiful. They do good work. If anybody wants a private tour, come by, see me, let me know, let's schedule it. I'll be happy to show you. Things are really starting to take shape. It really is. So it's about to get exciting. So to see all the difference going on, you can really start seeing the walls come together. Like I said, the duct work is all hung on the first floor. Second floor is almost done. We talked about the key coding templates already. Still looking at some of the baffle details on that storm shelter and the inverter, which you just talked about there. That'll probably be put to rest and solved by next month. The future task earlier, the exterior facade's coming in next week, so you're gonna start seeing brick and stone go up. And if you look at that schedule, Director Story, I actually look at that and see where it looks like November 6th is a potential finish date for that. So I would say if that west wall northwest wall is complete and that area is done, as long as they don't have scaffolding and work going on, last thing we want, I'm sure, keeps $80,000 squad cars and rocks and brick being dropped onto hoods and everything else. So, and I don't know how much they can do on that side first. I'll get with Andrew and say, hey, if we can get this side done first. I mean, we realize the impact that's going on, and we want to be good neighbors. And so we get that. He's tired of moving them back and forth. We're tired of hearing the complaints. We know they're tired of not having room to park. We get it. So we'll work through that and get that done as quickly as possible. The next thing, the roofing is going on, the TPO. So that's a thermoplastic polyolefin, and it's basically 2 layers of about 1.5 to 2 inch bills of foam, and then it's got a plastic layer on top. So that's what's going to be your rooftop. So it'll be a soft roof, so to speak. When you walk on, you'll feel like a little bit of cushion when you walk on there. So that's what's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Finally got the easement through Huffines to get the power through. We had to the magnolia trees, they would have been killed. So we had to get in and get another easement, and that took a little bit longer than what we anticipated there. But CoServe should have their subcontractors. I think Primoris, PSC are the people that do the boring. We're hoping that starts here next week or 2, and we can get that knocked out as well. As far as the value engineering, there's nothing has changed here since the last meeting over there. So all the savings here you see is still what we had there. And we think like I said, going to bring us in on the budget, at least 200,000 just on that. And then on the backside, you'll just see some recent photos. On the back, you'll see this black tar-like substance. That's kind of a weatherproofing that goes on where there's exposed cinder block wall. So that CMU gets that. There will be a board going over that will also provide there'll be an airspace, a board, and then the mortar there for all the R values on that. But that's why you see the black there. It's a little bit different than all that silver. The silver stuff's called Oxboard. It's a brand new product. And so far, Crossland's been very, very pleased with how that's working. They come in, it's self-healing. They put the screws in it where the washers go. Everything heals right back up with the foam, and it keeps it watertight. So that's super, super important. But that's where we're at right now. I talked to him today. I've bumped up a couple of weeks off of there. So we've gone from mid to late March to mid-March 2025 as an estimated date of completion. So they are rocking and rolling. I'll open it up to any other questions. That's all I've got for you.
I'd make a motion to accept project manager's report.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Report from Trident Consulting.
Evening. First off, of course, we're doing a recording tonight. It probably will be, it'll be posted sometime over the weekend. It's going to take a while to digest a 3-hour meeting and get that processed and posted, but for sure by Monday you should be able to access it, and we'll make sure there's a news post that's available online. Bear with us, as this is the first one. If the sound quality is not great, we will adjust and bring in additional mics. We'll just have to kind of play with it as we go and see how that works out. I'm going to get updated information on from legal on the notice for service that gets updated. Also, I know that there isn't going to be a district-sponsored hazardous waste recycling, all that. We'll find some resources for other places that people can dispose of those things, different things you can do, put sand and paint and all that sort of thing, and post information. for the educational option. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, the communications committee had some discussions about what to do with respect to the ask the board function that we've had previously, and things we might want to offer in its place. Scott, Brandon, and Jill want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, there's going to be two things that are tied to things that you do. So the first one's the ask the board, and we've spent a lot of time talking about this in the last communication meeting, and wanted to bring this up to the board for review. The problem with the ask the board is there was a lot of questions, and we could try to define it as best we could. There's a lot of questions that came in that we just couldn't answer. Because of, legal aspects or any number of things where we just couldn't give responses at that point in time out of the ask the board. And so what we talked about is there does have to be an avenue for people to be able to ask questions and for us to see if it's on the agenda or whatever, to be able to respond to things. Since we're going to be posting the meetings, one of the things that we had talked about is doing like instead of a comment card where you come in and have to do it, to be able to do e-comment cards so that you could still get your question out and have it read during the board meeting as an e-comment card rather than the ask the board. So it would be still brought up in the meeting. If it was on the agenda item, we'd still be able to talk about it. But if it wasn't an agenda item, no different than ask the board, we wouldn't be able to talk about it. Or if there was some other legal aspect of it that prevented us from discussing it, even if it was on the agenda, if it was a closed session item. So that was one of the things that we discussed. Brandon, do you have anything to add on that?
No, it was always kind of hard for me to tell what went to ask the board, because to Scott's point, it just seemed like you get a lot of questions about, hey, my trash didn't get picked up, all the way to, hey, tell me about this fire contractor, something like that. So I think unless you put some real strict controls around it, it gets to be what do you need a speaker card for versus what can you ask the board. And it's almost like it's kind of the same thing under a different name. So to Scott's point with us doing the video, if we switch it over to e-comment card, that gives people at home viewing a chance to drop their comments in, still participate, and get that captured in the
real time, not in advance. Is this?
No, they can drop them in advance, for the meeting. I think the thing is ask the board. The question would come up. We'd read the question, and then if it was on the agenda, we'd talk about it if we could, or then we not. With the e-comment card, it's basically the same thing. The question's going to get asked no matter what, and it's going to be posed out there for the public. So you're still getting the same thing, but we're actually defining it for what it is. And if it's on the agenda and we can discuss it just like we do with any other public comment card, then we'll discuss it. But if it's not on the agenda item, then we have to make the determination if we need to make that an agenda item moving forward or whatever, to have that discussion in the future if we're going to discuss that openly. So it's more just rephrasing what ask the board was.
Yeah, I think the goal is to sort of manage the expectation of what will happen with the questions. And it does still, like the directors pointed out, it does allow for that public input and the inquiries to come in, in advance, but also couches that with not just, we're going to read your question and then that's going to be the end of it. It effectively gives people who aren't able to be here physically an opportunity to turn a speaker card the way they would if they were here in person.
That's a nice enhancement. It doesn't really, ask the boards a way for people to send in a question. We can prepare remarks in advance with help of counsel, wherever we need, research it. And I really like the idea, and I think everybody else did too. It sounds like there's a lot of problems with it that we haven't navigated.
There's a lot of problems with it because there's a lot of questions that were coming in when you historically look at ask the board, and even Brandon, before he became a board member, had asked a lot of questions as an example. And because of events going on that, we may or may not be able to speak to at the time, if those questions go unanswered, just like we may not be able to address them with a public speaker card. The problem is because of the way Ask the Board was structured, it frustrated people because they didn't know what to expect. And that becomes the problem. And then when you try to put the guidelines around it, you still end up with a lot of the same queries and questions at the end because people don't necessarily know when they put in the question, are they going to be able to respond to this or not? If you allow them to do it as a public comment, basically, it works the same as public comment if it's on the agenda, but there's a better expectation because of how public comment's going to handle long-term on what to expect from or response and how that works.
That was especially a challenge, if I can start on that, because the timeline that we restricted Ask the Board to, they had to submit their questions 7 days prior to the meeting. Well, at that point, the agenda hasn't been posted.
Yeah.
So there would be no way for someone who's asking the questions to know if something that's going to be on the agenda to be discussed or not. So that there was a little bit of a disconnect on just on timeline.
I don't think it precludes you from talking to somebody offline and saying, hey, you put this in and wanted to reach out to you. I mean, you could still do that. I think to Scott's point, I was a little bit frustrated. I used it and it was no different to me than putting in a speaker card. Like I never heard anything beyond that. So
you all worked on this. This is the recommendation. It's not, it's just what we're trying. Ask the Board's a great thing. It's problematical. I don't know that I'm ready to give up on it entirely, but I can support this recommendation.
I just want to be clear. What's the difference between Ask the Board and the full cards?
Functionally,
Yeah.
Very little. It would be the same sort of submission form. So from the user experience side, it's basically the same. The only difference would be in how they're handled once they're received, and that would be that they would be tallied and given to Director Perry to read at the beginning of the meeting, similar to the way that he does with the board cards that people write when they come here in person. So yeah, tactically slightly different, but fundamentally it's the same.
But we're not going to give an answer. Is that
Well, would there be any more feedback or any additional feedback?
It would be the same kind of feedback that you would have for people who show in person. So if it's an item that is on the agenda that you all decide to respond to at a later point during the meeting, you could do that at that point. If it's a question that's not on the agenda, it'll be the same situation. You acknowledge the question, but you can't address it because it's not specifically called out.
I think part of the issue is that a lot of residents have the general consensus that we lack clear communication. And I think taking away the Ask the Board isn't the right answer. I think the residents do want a response from us. And I think part of the problem with Ask the Board is that if you don't attend the meeting, you don't get your answer. Like we never emailed.
Even if you do attend the meeting, you don't necessarily get an answer.
Yeah, but at least some people did get an answer like, oh, this is an HOA problem. Please go to your HOA. And I think we do need some sort of way for them to ask questions where they get answers.
I agree. And I mean, I think there's two things that went on. And one of the things we discussed is a lot of the Ask the Board questions that answered were questions that could have come through the general comments line that could have been answered by, GM Rob and not the board necessarily, because they were questions like the HOA questions and things that you bring up. Who manages this? Who manages that? A lot of the more integral Ask the Board questions were things that we don't or didn't have the capability to respond to because of things that were going on at the time. And so we couldn't respond to them. And so you're in the same boat then because you can't respond, that the community still doesn't feel like you're addressing their question, even though there's a reason why you can't respond. But a lot of the questions that were responded to here were questions that could have been responded to by the general manager anyway.
I think we kicked it around in our meeting and we felt like if you're going to do Ask the Board, you really would have to come up with like a 10-page user guide for things that we would do and we wouldn't do. And
now we're getting somewhere. keep going on that.
I was just gonna say, like, you really have to hammer out what the expectations are, what we will address, what we can't address, and things like, and that's kind of why we said, maybe it's just easier to say e-speaker card.
Is this done in other city councils? Is this?
I don't have any other boards that do that.
No, okay.
Now the e-speaker card, yes, I have several that do that, but I don't have anybody else doing it on the board. And I did have 2 other clients who toyed with the idea and then kind of got to the same place, which was, okay, how do we explain what we actually can, how it's going to work and what we can answer and what we can't.
How do you define what questions can be answered in this format?
Yeah, you almost need an elaborate flow chart to delineate how the rules of engagement for that.
And I understand this is frustrating to the public, like just to answer our questions, but there's legal reasons you can't. There's it's.
So I mean, if that's the guidance, we'll go down that path. But we thought it might be just easier to say, hey, participate from home, drop a speaker card, and we can talk to
trying this at least for now and continuing to explore transparency however we can.
We can continue to explore. I'm not going to say we won't continue to explore, but I think at this point in time, this is the better option for now until we can explore what the totality of this would be like. I mean, this isn't going to be a very easy. It sounds easy until you start digging in. And I write policies and procedures at my job and do workflows for compliance and quality as an example. And when you get into some of those workflows, what can you do? What can't you do? Same with some of the questions. They can get very complex, especially when you have to start dealing with legal issues, things like that.
What about?
Yeah, Jonathan, if you got advice.
Well, no, I mean, it's not advice, but I guess, the bottom line is that the residents want the answer, right? So the answer doesn't necessarily have to come at the meeting. So if they submit the question, and most of the time the resident just wants to know that the board hears them and that the board knows what's going on. And so if they ask a question that can be answered, then the answer can be provided through my office or something, and then you guys can be copied on it. That way you are aware of the problem and the answer that was given. If there's not an answer to them or we can't answer, we can also tell them that. But I think that would give an ability to at least provide an answer. And if they want to bring it up at the meeting, then they can do that as well, knowing that we may not be able to respond to it then. And I don't know what the difference between that and, submissions to the tracker are, but I'm just trying to, because most of the time I find when I deal with the other districts is they want an answer. And we may not be able to give it to them here at this meeting for whatever reason, but we may be able to provide it to them while still they know that the board heard the question and saw the answer and know that it's an issue. I don't know if that's a possibility or not either. And so
I think if we're not trying to address it within the meeting, because we can't, and there's a back end channel for that, that's a possibility.
To that point, I thought about, the HOA always responds to speaker cards. I mean, if you would want to take the bandwidth to do that, you have 6 speaker cards there. I mean, we could always type up, brief responses to that and send them out.
I do have a district that does that. They actually post the speaker card, post meeting with, a quick response, and all of that gets put out.
So then you get into the issue if the speaker card deals with something that's not on the agenda.
Right.
And is not discussed, then,
Usually the response then is, this may be added to a future meeting agenda. It's kind of it's a little bit of a non-answer, but.
It's frustrating people.
My second comment with the e-comment cards would be what happens if you get an inappropriate one? What happens if you get spam? Because I know with some of the tickets that we get, it's applying for a job. So how are you going to censor that?
Rob and I would have to put our heads together collectively. When it's clear spam, we get some, hey, it boosts your ranking on Google.
Yeah.
Those can just go away. They obviously do not need a response of any sort, but there are some where it might be a little more ambiguous. We have to think through, and it's probably going to be, as needed discussion when there's something new that comes in like that, or we've never seen it before. We'll have to figure out how to process them. That will happen for sure. For sure. I also think that adding meeting recordings, I think that's going to help quite a bit because, you know, it allows for more than the whatever 15 people or so who are here right now to watch. They'll be able to go right to the sections they want to hear about, and I think that will improve the need or the limit the request for transparency because you're providing more already. Other comments?
So what are we going to do with this e-speaker card thing? Come on, try.
Yeah, we can try it. Sounds, you said it's very similar to, but the people aren't here can hear about it later.
Yeah.
We got two smart guys that worked on this pretty hard, and this is what they brought us. I'm willing to try it.
Does that include the answering the question piece or just the submittal piece? I want to be clear what you're at.
I don't think we hashed out how we're going to answer the question. Right. I thought my understanding is it's going to function like a public comment.
Okay.
Right.
I just want to make sure I understand.
Isn't that how it was presented to us? Right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That much I'm comfortable doing now. I am.
And we'll continue to tweak as we move forward.
Do we have any?
Yeah, a motion that we try the e-card system.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. So the second piece of this has to do with the two text lines we have open. What we talked about, there's three options we talked about. We've got the one text line for the meetings where there's 14 people that have actually signed up for it. And about 10 of those, 8 to 10 of those are all district employees or directors. So the three options that we looked at or a couple options we looked at. One is we looked at, discussed killing that line and then just notating when we would move the event. So in other words, if we were going to move it from here to Savannah or here to Artesia or here to Arrowbrook, the meeting, we would send that out on the line where we send emergency stuff out because it would be basically one additional text message a month. And on an average month, we only send out 2 text messages on that line anyway. On that system, there's an average, I think, 680?
We have closer to 1,000 now.
Closer to 1,000 now?
90 or something.
Okay, so there's 1,000 people in the district that are on the other alert notice versus the 14 for the meetings. The second option was just send out regular notice for the meetings on that line. And if you figure that's still not just when we move the meetings or when there's a special meeting, but just regular meeting notices and special meeting notices and whatever, that's still only going to be an average of 1 text message a month more. A couple of months it's 2. And for the most part, I think we found that the most text messages sent out on that emergency line was 6, and that was in April because of the storm events. So there's not much use on that. I mean, it's not overly bearing per se, where you would get that many extra text messages on the lines. And then the third option, which was to send out a mass text message to everyone on the other line that only has 14 members right now and make everyone opt out of it. Now, I'm not a fan of sending out messages to every single person in the district or all the district numbers on the other line and making them opt out just because I know how much I hate spam messages. I'm in favor of killing the line with 14 and moving the messages about the meetings to the emergency line, knowing that it's only 1 message more a month. And we're touching nearly 1,000 community members. And, that's kind of what I'm proposing on this. Brandon, I don't know if you have any additional comments on that.
Yeah, so the rub of this was that line is $600 and we could potentially save $600 by putting those 14 users somewhere else. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. I get that. What I don't get is let's do away with it. So I think we had some pretty contentious discussions, Scott and I did, about what do we do and how do we do it. And I think we should probably push out a notice. I don't know if it's the emergency line or if it's the other line. It doesn't matter to me, but as long as we push out something to say, hey, we're here, we're working for you once a month, come meet with us. I don't want to do away with it. So that's kind of as far as my thoughts.
I'm not talking about doing away with the message. I'm just saying kill the line that only has 14 members.
Put them all in one line.
Put them all in one line.
Okay. That was a long one to get.
I'm
totally in favor of that.
Yeah, I was giving you the three options.
Yeah. Put them all. We still send out a notice of meeting.
Yes.
So the thinking was we reserve the emergency as a clear channel for just that type of communication. It seems like not to spam people and not to push away people that only want emergency notices. And I think we can try it the way that you're proposing. I don't think we're going to get a lot of pushback. I like that idea.
Yeah, it's just struggle to track, because we've done everything we can to try to get people to sign up for it. And when we've only gotten 14 people to sign up for that line, it makes more sense to push it out to move those messages to the other line and push them out that way. And plus you've got nearly 1,000 people that have signed up for those messages.
Yeah.
And I can monitor, I mean, if we see that a bunch of people suddenly are opting out, well, then maybe we revisit the topic. But in the short term, I don't expect that's going to be a problem. Like Scott said, we're only sending most months maybe 2 or 3 alerts. Like it's not a spamming. I'm not worried about that at all. If you were sending like 10 a month, I think
if we send a notice of meeting to all of those people that we already have, we'll have more people come. Yeah, I think we will.
And that's what I hope for.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
What's the motion?
The motion is to move those 14 users to the regular
emergency text line.
And
then send meeting notices via the emergency text line.
Okay, so we're just eliminating the other one.
Correct.
Okay.
And shifting the users. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Any other
questions for me this evening?
Let us pass that one.
Oh, sorry.
We've been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
There's a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I haven't double checked, but I noticed like a week or 2 ago, the meeting minutes for the summer haven't been uploaded.
Okay.
Could you just
Let me
check
back
on that?
tomorrow. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Please tell me if you don't have it.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Do I have a motion to approve Biden's report?
Make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 17, discussion regarding partnership with Town of Prosper Library Services. This one's mine. I've got a pretty good group of Artesia folks that want to use the Prosper Library, and they charge them $50. And they're kind of hardcore. When you go in there, they make you show and identify and can use it. And so when Director Story and I met with Town of Prosper, this is one thing I brought up with the town manager. And my plea to him was, this is $50. How many people are we talking about? This would be such a nice thing. And he said, it's $50. We have a budget too. And he pushed back. And he said, this is what we did in Addison, because he worked in Addison before. He said, we just paid for it as a city. We paid for the residents to have library access, and we covered the bill. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe we can do that. How much money are we talking about? He sent me some information. There are about 200 library cards in Artesia. 200 times 50 is 10,000. It's not 1,000, it's 10,000. It's a big number. I can't sell that out then. And that's just Artesia. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it for everybody. And that's what they did. They had to use different libraries for different ends of town, right? So just as my duty representing, people have been asking me about this for years. So I said, I'll bring it forward. I'll work through it. I'll explore it. that's kind of the outline of it. Is this something you guys have an interest in taking a closer look at?
I don't think we can put the cost right now. We're looking at 200 cards in Artesia.
It'll be more.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
you
with
start
the little-
taking Arrowbrook and you start taking Savannah into account. Now, all of a sudden, are you talking 1,000? Are you talking, 1,500?
And how do you limit it?
Yeah, and you can't limit it. That's the problem. What are you gonna do? The first 50 people that come in and apply for a library card will pay for it? I mean, yeah, I don't see that working.
I want kids in the library.
I mean, I'd love to be able to swing it, yeah, but I just don't see the money part.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I mean, if there was a way that we could, work out with Prosper that if they show that they live in the district, they can pay for the library card, or whatever. I guess it doesn't matter because they can get it anyway right now. They just have it. Yeah. So, but some communities say you can't get them unless you're in their community. So,
What you could do is maybe you have to think outside the box or to get the money, but maybe you subsidize a part of it and not the whole thing.
I was thinking, could Prosper maybe give a discount? Anything?
We can keep talking to him. He
Why not?
he does his,
Bristol Library? It is much bigger.
And you can get free at Little Cows, and anybody in that county gets free cows.
if we did this, we could do it.
Yeah, we should maybe look at some other stuff like that, but
yeah, this isn't something I think we can do right now.
I want to bring it up. Let's keep talking about it. We'll keep working on
I would make a motion to table it and review it further.
it. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion on use of district intellectual property.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is me and, I worked, for the Senate for a while. They had some laws about when you could use their logo because they didn't want people to unofficially use their logo, right? And I saw this with campaigning. People put this on their campaign signs, and I was talking to Jonathan. I think we need some kind of policy to say, this is how the logo can be used. This is when it's appropriate. This is official, and anything that is not official cannot use this logo. So that's kind of the rub of this argument. And I guess, Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you to see what we can and can't do there.
So are you just talking about, like board members and stuff, or are you talking about the public also?
I'm talking about all encompassing, like, this is our logo. You can't throw this on your garage sale sign.
Right, so I think that's almost a trademark thing, and which is possible. I've done that before. To apply for a trademark and to be able to control the use of it. As long as, when you apply for a trademark, it has to be a unique symbol. So you have to describe the symbol, and it's on the shirt there. And, if there's somebody else called Elm Ridge, then you kind of have to look at that to see if it's yours, interferes with theirs too much. So there's steps to take, but it's doable. And that's something we could look into for sure.
What are the concerns?
I think it's credibility. Honestly, like if you have people that are using your logo for improper usage, that's what I would be concerned with cutting down. Somebody using it in a garage sale, campaign signs, anything that is not official Elm Ridge.
Short of a trademark. What?
You could have I'm going to ask you nicely not to use trademark policy, but that's about it. Obviously, you can set a policy for employees and directors, but when you're talking about the general public, you really don't have control of that unless you do have a legal right to it.
Is that worth exploring, or I'm getting some puzzled looks maybe?
I don't mind. Yeah, I don't know what the cost would be for trademarking stuff. I don't even know if that's what other municipalities do with their logo, with their logos, like City of Louisville or whatever. But I don't have a problem looking into, restrictions for employees or anything like that. That's something we can do internally. I have no problem with that. I would make a motion to do that.
Is that communication committee topic anyway?
Yeah, we could roll it in there and discuss it.
It's branding.
Yeah, it's really branding, so it's marketing, but we could do it under communications.
Do you have a comment, Megan, or have you seen it done before?
I have, it's not a fast process,
No, it's not.
so I think it's, you know,
But it's
for a district this size, it might be
trademark though.
appropriate.
Yeah, so I've done, I used to do that in a past life, so I can do it. But, you know, it's like she said, not a fast process.
Time's not a big deal. Are we talking hundreds, thousands, 10,000s?
Of what?
It's an expense, yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, it would just take it. I mean, as long as it's there's no pushback on it with the symbol, because the symbol can't look like any other symbol, you know, and so you have to, you know, it depends on how much, you know, pushback there is from the trademark office, but it's not a real intensive process if you're just looking for specific uses. So
Motion to look into trademarking our logo. That's okay. Let's have it.
Yep, I make the motion to begin or to look into the process of trademarking the logo, to protect the logo.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Are we on 19?
Yes, sir. For 19, 20, and 21, Mr. President, I recommend that before we go into executive session under 5510701, 5510702, and 5510704.
A motion to go into private session.
I second it.
Jonathan, would you?
Yeah, so I know that there's been questions about the executive session, and, you know, it's always, you know, kind of myself that tells them that they need to go into closed session. You know, these are pretty, you know, for one, this is number 19 is lawful and lawfully. You know, we don't want to talk in public about our position on a law because we don't want to jeopardize that. The personnel matters, again, there's privacy issues that are, you know, involved in that, so that's why we go into closed session to talk about that. And then this real property purchase, you don't want to be negotiating against yourself in public in a real property purchase, so that's why we're going in to talk about that. So I think we just want to make it clear that it's me telling them, hey, we need to go there and talk about it. So. All right, do I have a motion to come back into open session?
I'll make the motion to come back into open session.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Right, opposed? All right, Mr. President, on item 19, I'll be lawsuit. We will have a amendment and settlement at the next meeting. So expect that to be on the agenda and be ready to.
Thank you.
On item number 20, I think the board asked, wants a motion to authorize Director Bolig and Director Antti Giovanni. Is that right? Yes, sir. To solicit proposals from third-party independent counsel for a review of the district's policies, procedures, and employment practices. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then on item number 21, there was no action other than to continue to towards closing. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, I know we've got a supplemental coming up right after this, but for future agenda item, I'd like to, our next meeting, add a item to review the 380 current agreements, revenue, and things of that nature, as we discussed earlier.
I had two I'd like to kick around. One about curb painting for security, some kind of policies that would allow people to paint their curbs so navigation would be better. And then I want to talk about moving this meeting back to this Savannah Clubhouse, at least while our building is being constructed.
So the allowing people to paint their curbs for.
Yeah, our neighborhoods are very dark at night, right? And so I think that would help with emergency services and, you know, all that stuff.
Just trying to.
You paint the house numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, paint the curve. The park item, not just revenue from 380. broader, to discuss the use of the park. What I'm reading from is, do we even want these teams playing here? Let's at least have that discussion, right? Because it's a burden. I've lived in places where we have all the traffic and everything.
Fair enough. So let's just review the, all the parties that use the park externally, the revenue of it versus, so we can see if there's justification or not for it. So, but yeah, let's just bring it up as a review, because one of the other things may be if there's justification for it revenue wise, maybe we need to increase the contract amounts or something like that. So,
or if not, you just don't spend on things, right?
Yeah. So yeah, but let's at least look at it.
Okay, got it. Any other future agenda stuff? And then really, the committee item was added because I didn't know what we were going to do. Okay. On, some of the stuff. So I put it on there just in case we needed to one people to our committee to look at things.
Okay.
So that's some other committee discussion.
It wasn't a finance committee?
Oh, is it a finance committee too? I'm sorry. Is that?
Well, I know I had asked
That's
for
right.
a finance committee. I know Lynn kind of seems a little overwhelmed. I was over there on Monday for the committee meeting. For the law enforcement committee meeting. She just seemed kind of overwhelmed and needing assistance.
I'm not going to say it's a good or a bad idea. I don't know what you guys think. I would maybe postpone that shortly because we're doing some independent third-party reviews, see what comes out of those, and then make a motion coming out of that.
Well, it's more to help Lynn.
What does our supplemental notice say? Like I
It
saw
just
it, but
talks about discussion on establishing board committees and the appointment of committee members. So,
okay. I know
More specific.
Felicia's been pushing for the finance committee, right? So I hate to kick it at another time. I almost feel like we need to do it or not do it, right?
Is there any reason not to do it?
the only reason I'm recommending not to do it, if we're doing some third-party investigations into some things, I wouldn't want to change things that we're doing historically or currently until those are done.
You want to get through this first.
Yes.
We can't do both.
Yeah, what does the money have to do with the other thing? I'm not making that connection.
I just don't think when you're doing independent investigations and things, you make changes to how you've done things in the past until that's finished. Now, that's just my opinion. It doesn't mean we can't. I'm just putting my 2 cents out there.
I guess, what is the scope of the finance committee? Because to me, that's like we're looking for cost savings and, what is your
That's
intent?
a great question. What's it for?
Can I?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we do have other districts that have finance committees, and what they do is they work with the bookkeeper and the general manager, work on the budget. They work on the tax rate. So they're constantly meeting every month. How are we doing on this budget item? What are we doing on this? Where is this money going? I mean, it's just kind of a monthly review of where everything stands. If there's action that needs to be taken or recommendations to the board, they come to the board with that. But it's kind of a year-long, hey, we're working on the budget. We're looking at tax rates. We're working with the financial advisor on what they're looking at. And so
I think that's a good idea. I think some of us need to be more actively involved in that process.
Yeah, I think that I'm fine with, and that doesn't seem like it interferes with the other thing to me.
This meeting's open and we're discussing and we can make motions.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't finance, that was recommended when we were first going over the committee.
We tabled it. It was a suggested committee, and for starters, we went with law enforcement and communication. And
We had about 6 committees, I think.
we went with those 2, and finance was at the top of the list of one we might add.
And part of it was because Scott missed one meeting and you missed one meeting, so we wanted everyone to kind of be there to.
4 committees, yes.
Yeah.
I don't, like I said, I think the finance committee is a good idea. Don't take me wrong. That was just the only reason I would post off on it is because I typically, you do any kind of independent third party thing, I typically don't make changes, like in my business or anything until that's over. And then I make all the changes I was gonna make. That's the only thing I was stating. And maybe if that's the case, you approve it pending completion of that or something like that, or you want to start it right away, it's up to you guys, but that's.
I mean, it's not like start right, we just approved the tax rate tonight,
Yeah.
Budget's kind of set right now, and then usually we do a mid-year budget,
Correct.
review or changes or amendments if we need to, so
There's a lot of,
there's time.
I was gonna say the invoice file, I looked through that was, I don't know how many 100 pages. It's not like it's gonna take them, whoever's on this committee, it's gonna take them some time to figure things out. So I don't see, if we approved it tonight, it's not like they're gonna come back and have a million recommendations next month. I don't think that's gonna happen, right?
Who wants to be on?
I mean, I'll do it. My background's finance, so I have no problem doing that.
And I can be on.
Do you want to be on?
I mean, I'm detail oriented, I'm sure.
Do you want to be on? Okay.
I have no problem. If no one else wants to.
Do we have a motion?
I'll motion that we start a finance committee
With?
Brandon and Felicia. Directors Story and Hastings.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna oppose, not because I don't think that the committee is a good idea, but just because I think it should wait until after.
Let the record show.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.